我操！
等一下，为什么话题到蹦逼汤上面？你刚刚那个故事讲完没有？
哦，对对，不好意思，我想说我还是确认一下，我就慢慢的
确认
他在开冰箱，
开什么冰箱啊？
干，结果知道怎么样吗？
怎么样？
我真的没有买蹦逼汤，
你还真的开冰箱门哦？
不是这微波炉的门啊。
你零食放的位置会不会太奇怪了一点？
太奇怪了吧？你这样不就变成蹦逼汤了吗？蹦。
好了，不要再聊蹦逼汤了，可不可以？我们刚刚在聊楼下的事情，好
可以不要打岔他，让他好好讲吗？
你才在打岔，好不好？
不要打岔了啦！后来发生严重的事情哎，我听到外面有人很大声在那边骂脏话。
什么脏话？什么脏话？
记得是干干干干。
哇，这真的出事
哎呀，
你看三短三长三短 SOS 的意思。
我私密嘛。
是吧 SOS？
不用啦，你听到干就知道出事了，好不好？
也不一定啊，说不定是哑铃举太重啊。
联想啊。
干，干。
你真的不用合理化这个部分好吗？
也有可能是干。
哑铃跟杠铃根本就没差，好不好？重点是谁半夜会在路边举哑铃？
对，我也觉得不可能。
对啊，
所以我马上打开手机开始 Google。
不用啊，就直接开窗户确认了。
谁手机放在窗户外面的？
叫他确认楼下，不是确认手机不会放窗外的好吗？
结果马上跳出6个举哑铃常见的错误，完全没有提到这一项。
马里用膝盖想也知道。
然后外面又传来，放开我，这个疯子！
哇，越来越危急了啦！
你才知道我想法完全错了。
他用膝盖想是能多快啊？
不是真的用膝盖想啊。
很多人都说你胖，其实并不是应该关注你不到1年啊。
对，我3月份才起号，你为什么关注我呢？
因为你长得好看。
那今天到线下来看，觉得跟视频上有差距吗？
你视频上是实话实说。
来哥，你说。
就是你直播的时候要好看，而且直播的时候很多人都说你胖，其实并不。
哥，我本来不知道有人说我胖的，现在全场都知道了。
你现场看也正好。直播的时候很多人都说你胖，其实并不。是应该关注你不到1年啊。
对，我3月份才起号，你为什么关注我呢？
因为你长得好看。
那今天到线下来看，觉得跟视频吗？
你视频上是。
人心之间的冷漠。
对啊，所以主动关心真的很重要。
对，我3月份才起号，你为什么关注我呢？
人心之间的冷漠所以才发生。
对啊，所以主动关心跟互相帮助真的很重要。
没错。
我这只脚的鞋带好像松开了可是我好不想蹲下
没有人会帮你这个忙的。你是他爸是不是啊？
我帮你把另一只也松开了。
他要求不是这样吧？
舒服多了。
你们两个有病啊！
你看人心之间是不是不能够冷？好，我再跟大家举另一个例子。我最近发生过的一件事情，就有一天半夜我要睡觉的时候，我睡觉前就听到我楼下传来很大的一声“叭”，
进血。
大半夜的车子好不好？
半夜。
然后紧接着一声“嘣”，
你看车祸了吧？
超大声的我整个窗户都在震动
哇，这么严重啊！
有人打麻将啊，那个
碰这么大声啊，那桌子都烂了好不好？车祸啦！
我跟你说，那个情况真的不对劲。我脑中马上浮现一个念头，该不会是蹦逼汤吧？
怎么可能呢？大半夜的谁卖蹦逼汤呢？
卖那种24小时的吧？
大半夜的谁会去买啊？
我会去买啊。
好，全台湾只有你一个。
有2个哦，
蹦逼汤帮蹦出来超。
等一下，为什么话题到蹦逼汤上面？你刚刚那个故事讲完没有？
对，不好意思，我想说我还是，我就慢慢的
去楼下确认一下。
他在开冰箱。
开门哪开什么冰箱啊？
干，结果知道怎么样吗？我真的没有买蹦逼汤。
你还真的开冰箱门哦？
不是，这微波炉的门啊。
你零食放的位置会不会太奇怪了一点？
太奇怪了吧？你这样不就变成蹦逼汤了吗？
好了，不要再聊蹦逼汤了，可不可以？我们刚刚在聊楼下的事情，好
可以不要打岔他，让他好好讲吗？
你才在打岔，好不好？
不要打岔了啦！后来发生严重的事情我听到外面有人很大声在那边骂脏话。
什么脏话？什么脏话？
我记得是干干干干。
哇，这真的出事
哎呀，
你看三短三长三短 SOS 的意思。
我是立马，
是吧 SOS？
不用啦，你听到干就知道出事了，
也不一定啦，说不定是哑铃举太重啊。
联想啊。
干！哦，干！
你真的不用合理化这个部分好吗？
也有可能是干。
哑铃跟杠铃根本就没差，好不好？重点是谁半夜会在路边举哑铃？
对，我也觉得不可能。
对啊，
所以我马上打开手机开始 Google。
不用了，就直接开窗户确认了。
谁手机放在窗户外面的？
叫他确认楼下，不是确认手机不会放窗外的好吗？
结果马上跳出6个举哑铃常见的错误，完全没有提到这一项。
马流膝盖想也知道。
然后外面又传来，放开我，这个疯子！
哇，越来越危急了啦！
我才知道我想法完全错了。
太慢发现了，
啊，他用膝盖想是能多快啊？
不是真的用膝盖想啊。
哑铃怎么可能是说放开我，你这个疯子
OK， 我更正好，他是用屁股想。
紧接着外面又传来，不要！
哦，女生哦，是要出人命了是不是？
状态真的很紧急。我马上手机一丢，一个翻身我就要冲旁边去了。
前空翻，后空翻，
不重要，他都做不到，好不好？
窗户在这边对不对？我床在这边，我就在床上。
你不是都躺着吗？那这动作超简单的，好不好？
拜托，起床这个动作超危险的，好不好？如果你一不小心让他后面那条筋的话，你2个礼拜都不用动了。我
那
跟你讲，
你们两个就多运动啊！
关心的不是我身体，要关心楼下的事情，好
我
吗？
没有真的想关心你的身体，
我跟你讲，那时候我真的好紧张哦，我想说要找个好机会打开窗户偷看一下。
不用犹豫就直接打开来啦，
哎呦，蚊子啊！
之后打死他就好了。
怎么那么残忍啊你？
哎，你对楼下见死不救才残忍，好不好？
但你总不能见蚊就杀吧？
不然嘞，你讲什么烂谐音笑话？蚊子就是要杀，不然你要给它叮吗？
公蚊子不会叮人，好吗
没？看得出来。
那么蚊子叮你的时候是会痒吗？痒不就看出来了吗？
那我要被咬了之后才知道吗？我要在那种哎呦有蚊子哎，怎么痒的？干，原来是母的。我打不到了。
够了没有？你给我住口！
枪毙枪啊，又不是我的问题。
外面呛的啦。
啊，话题回去太快了。
我那时候情况真的不对，你知道吗？不行，我一定要介入了。
哦
马上打开窗户，看，差小，现在几点了？干！
说好的互相帮助呢？
你知道对方回我什么吗？
凌晨2点
怎么可
啦！
能回这个啊？
他是回我说，是靠没杀小啊。
废话，你根本就火上加油啦！
关上窗之后，我冷静下来了。我冷静了几秒。好，至少我确认过了。
那不叫确认好不好？那个叫挑衅。
好险我房间里面没有蚊子。
谁叫你确认有没有蚊子啊？我要你确认楼下的状态啊，重点是楼下。
重点楼下现在有猴子，你知道吗？
哪来的猴子啊？
猴子。
哦，对了，那种人是猴子。
对。
哪小啊？
那个猴子呛我说什么？你知道吗？
像好。
那么有种你下来啊，孬种！
你真的是活该，我真的没有想到你很孬。
很孬你马上关窗个性这么软啊，一口咬你下去啊，还好软，好绵，好好吃，好软哦。
你讲的那个叫汤种，我们现在在讲孬种，好吗？
是有孬种吐司吗？
没有这种东西啦。
骂谁孬种？你骂谁汤种啊？
他骂的啦。
不是我骂的。
哦，楼下又回了。
不，楼上回的。
楼上邻居也参战了，而且他耳包啊。
邻居干嘛要偶包啊？
耳包啦，跟你现在一样啊。
他们就开始在那边，你孬种啊，你汤种啊，你孬种啊，你汤种啊，这样。
幼稚的互骂。
我真的听不下去哦。我又看，你这孬种吵够没啊？
明明你才是始作俑者啊！
孬种、汤种，至少大家同文同种嘛，
关你屁事啊！讲的什么烂笑话？
对，什么同文同种？我想说楼下还有心情给我开这种烂玩笑啊！
楼下真的有人开这个玩笑？
我又听不下去了，我就看，那我叫警察哦，警察哦，
这样最快。
我楼下马上说，你就叫啊！
这种人不要跟他客气了，就叫。
跟你讲，过没多久，我就听到，
警察好有效率。
楼下整个大暴怒哦！我说干，假告，那我叫我兄弟来啊，干！
哇，大混战这个警察兄弟啊，
这样很糟糕，好不好？
然后我手机突然就响了，
警察打给你。
对，然后我那个手机不丢到旁边去吗？我就找不到，我就一直找，我醒来就早上了。
结束了。最关键的部分呢？
手机到底在哪里？
不是手机的问题啦，最关键的是楼下到底事情解决了没？然后到底发生什么事？
就那样啊。
所以你从头到尾都没有帮上忙
对，所以大家千万不要像我一样。
我靠，你他妈就跟大家讲了一个反面的故
在呢，我觉得这个社会其实不是什么互相帮助，其实现在这个自私自利就自私自利啊。
对，你这样又太悲观，刚刚那完全就是他个人问题。
你们知道有一次有个状况我很讨厌，就是我们是排练排很晚嘛，然后排到半夜嘛，我骑摩托车回家，然后那路灯你知道很旧很暗，然后一直闪，然后反正路很暗啊，然后突然有一个冲出来嘞，
哦，这种真的会吓到。
吓到了，我这个大吓一跳嘞，因为我那时候在停红绿灯嘛，我
那有必要吓到吗？你已经停着嘞，
说不定那个人丑爆啦。
你也太失礼了吧？
没有你想哦，如果你从后照镜看的时候，然后你看一看，突然有一个人从后面咻这样过去，哇，我吓到，
他还从你后面经过而已，你有必要吓到吗？
我吓的，我整个紧急刹车哎。
你本来就停着，有必要再刹一次吗？
那个左手大拇指哦，我还不小心按到那个喇叭，就叭这样子。
哇，你好像改车对不对？
没有啦，我整个吓到膝盖一软，然后龙头一歪，然后整个
心跳还漏了一拍哦。
不用补充这个啦，
没有，
重点是你人没事嘛。
我饮料全部泼出来了啦。
那也还好啊，
客人的订单呢你？
他才没有跑 Uber Eat 啦。
是啊，只喝了一点点，很浪费，我全泼了。
没关系，重点是没有出车祸就好。
哎，我整个裤子都湿了，我内裤也都湿了，好不好？
回家洗一洗啊。
是尿啦，
饮料啦，他被吓到什么程度啊？
没有全糖的奶茶三兄弟啊。
我随便
全糖的。
那个人呢？
那个人就在那边啊，动都不动，也没有要道歉的意思哦。
我觉得他被你的反应吓到。
这社会真的病了，
病
吧？
你们两个才病的啦。
我那时候超不爽的，我马上让他下摩托车，有没有？
哦，好华丽。
然后有没有？
还立了地柱。
然后我脱下安全帽，抓安全帽看着他，我就说，哎，
太冲动，不要这样，不要这样。
等，你机车戴安全帽，你这不扣是不是啊？
不是重点啊，他要打人的好不好？他都这样而已。
我怎么这样？然后我就把安全帽放回我那个机车车厢里面嘛，
就直接放回去就不用赘述了，好不好？
然后我就把那个机车坐垫有没有很用力的这样砰关上，我跟你讲，不开玩笑，那声音大声到附近的邻居的窗户全部都在震动，我跟你讲。
这样坐垫可以关到这么大声吗？
可以啊，然后你知道，朝我冲过来，
他要打你。
不是要签名啊？
不是被观众认出来，
被咬了。
那什么出招方式？
被咬。
哪个观众啊？这个
不是观众的啦。
狗啊。
狗
啊。
等，什么时候有狗的？
不好意思，就是那个观众冲出来的时候，其实他牵了一只很大的狗，懂吗？
所以他一开始就带了一只狗，你早点讲啊！哎，这样，所以他真的是观众哦。
你有听懂是不是？是那个人让他的狗去咬他，啊，他默默在旁边看，啊，他不是观众。
这解释不会太牵强了一点吗？
哦，就这个意思。
哇，你们两个真的是搭档。
然后总而言之，那只狗就朝我冲过来嘛，然后真的就咬我，咬我腿，咬我手，一直咬我，我想干，很
惨了吧你？
很痛，我又想流很久，你知道吗？
惨哦！
等一下，他就是你家楼下那个人吧？
啊？
是啊。
是吧？那个流程你刚刚有听出来吗？
啊？
叭，砰，干，
不是，我听到的是干，是长音呐。
你不要计较这么仔细啊，就是他了吧？
是的，不是，总而言之他咬我，我很不爽嘛，然后我就看他，我就抓住他，哇，他也是很大一只，你知道吗？我想干，
长音而且半夜在路边举重的人哦。
啊不，是举狗的人哦。
没差啦。
那举人啊，
人
那个人呢？
对，所以你在半夜，然后被一只狗咬，然后你把那个人举起来，这什么画面呐？
我靠，这真的是打狗也要看举人呢。
主人啦，讲什么烂谐音笑话？
不是啊，你们知道这个人这时候说什么？我竟然说什么吗？
好高，
怎么可能这么开心啊？
他说：“哇，个饭碗，你这个疯子！”
对，是疯子。
我听了以后，我想不要。
等一下，为什么你会是这个反应？
哇，你有点爽哎。
对啊，你心理变态是不是？
没有，那只狗一直舔我胯下，它一直舔。
不要，他脖子不要。
舔。
奶茶三兄弟。
一直舔，它一直舔。
好了，可以不要一直搞眼皮。
你快要被吃完了啦。
你也不要再叙述，太恶心了。
很不爽，我就想说你咬我，然后你还吃我兄弟。我看他说，你够了没有？给我住口！
我就说我听过了吧。
然后这时候，不知道哪边来个疯子开枪说什么，傻小啊，几点了？干！
原来如此，所以是你呛我说是靠北他小啊？
哦，这句是应该是他说的，他。
为什么是他？你一直举着他吗？你也太强壮了吧！
所以也是他呛我说，那么有种你下来啊，孬种。
这就是我呛他。
你不把他放下来，他真的下不来。
因为严格来说，我 说的是，你这么重你就下来啊，孬种。
所以你要先把它放下来才对吧？
哎，这时候又不知道，哎，什么唐总啊，谁唐总啊，神经病，你知道吗
那？个耳包邻居，
对啊，
你们才在那边孬种啊，汤总啊，孬种汤总这样。
哦，这是那个这个人而已，我没有。
对，所以你就举着他，然后让他跟那个邻居互骂，
就
也太诡异了吧？
汤总啊，孬总啊，汤总。
你也太轻松了一点吧
这样子？
还可以做这个动作吗？
所以就你哦，
啊
也就是说，你们这孬种吵过没有？一样哦，
啊
对，
就是你哦。
恭喜两位，
啊
你们的记忆拼图终于拼起来了吧？看，
但我不是孬种，我不是孬种，我直面这个状况，我是孬种吗？
哎，不好意思，
在意这件事了啦。
对吧？
我有一种是想确认一下，那个孬种汤总，至少大家同文同种，这个你讲的。
那个时候状况很紧张，我想要讲个笑话，让大家情况舒缓一下。但你们两个刚刚是不是都说这是个烂笑话？你有说你有
在
说吗？
意，不用这个
当然，然后问
啦。
你为什么说我们叫警察的这种状况不需要吧？你开窗确认一下嘛。
你听到这种笑话，你身为搞笑艺人，是不是想回击一下？我就打开窗说啊，我叫警察哦，警察。
你根本就是用一个烂笑话回击一个烂笑话而已耶。
那你有必要说你就叫啊，没必要吧？
是他说的，他说的。
说的。
爆了吗？后来换成公主
对，
爆了吗？
后来下来他说的，
哎，等一下，所以后来警察真的有来啊？
没有，就那只狗啊。
那是狗发出来的声音啊！哎，这我真的没想到哎。
我真的听到我整个理智断线，你知道吗？我想说，哇，你咬我就算了，你是我兄弟，然后你现在还叫，我想看加高搞啊！哦，
输我。哦，哎，店长，那你为什么要说什么？哦，叫我兄弟来啊，干！
我打给你啊，你们接啊。
这电话是你打的哦？
对啊。
哦，我还以为。哎，不好意思啊，我那时候手机一丢，我真的找不到，我找到早上。你后来人还好吗？
哦，我们3个就去阳明山看日出了，
浪漫了，也好了。
什么烂故事啊！
谢谢大家。
感谢大家的收看。如果喜欢我们的影片的话，
有在笑吗？
I'm Latif Nasser. This is Radio Lab, and today on the show we have a story from our archives. It's about a group of kids growing up in Cuba in the 90s, and these kids, who had great taste in music, by the way, they decided to do something extreme. They decided to escape the system by means necessary. We wanted to play it for you now, in part because it's Hispanic Heritage Month, but also because of what's going on in Cuba now. In 2025, Cuba is facing a major economic crisis. There are power outages, food shortages, protests. The government is punishing dissent and public criticism, all of which is similar to the situation that was playing out in the 90s when our story begins, and that these kids were directly responding to. So we're going to play you this episode, and then we have a quick update for you at the end. So here you are, Los Freakies.
Yep. Wait, you're listening. All right.
You're
Listening
to Radio Lab
radio
from
WNYC.
Rewind.
Hey, I'm Jad Abumrad. This is Radio Lab. Robert's traveling today, so it's just me. And today we have a very different kind of story than we've ever done. It comes from a journalist and filmmaker named Luis Treyes. And something kind of happened as we were reporting this.
Sounds pretty clear.
Yeah.
It's got to be a landline.
Luis and one of our producers, Tim Howard, had called up this guy, Vladimir Ceballos, who is a filmmaker himself, Cuban guy, an exile, and the interview happened to be just a few hours after Obama had made that big announcement.
Today, the United States of America is changing its relationship with the people of Cuba. In the most significant changes in our policy in more than 50 years.
That happened just before the interview.
Hello, is this Vladimir?
Okay, we're recording.
Yes, it's Vladimir.
Vladimir, how you doing? This is Tim in New York, and we also have Luis.
Hi, Vlad. It's Luis.
How are you, Luis?
Good, good. And
About
you?
the news, no?
Yeah, amazing news, right?
Man, I was crying, man.
Really?
Yeah, I was crying, man. Yeah. First of all, I've been here in the United States for 20 years, and I never think that I was gonna see this day,
Really?
We will begin to normalize relations between our two countries.
because it has been 50 years, 53 years since the United States, broke the relationship with diplomatic relationship with Cuba, and nothing happened in Cuba. Everything is the same. Now, everything is going to change.
Today, a collaboration with a fantastic program, Radio Ambulante. Luis Treyes comes to us from them. This is a story that predates the stuff you've been hearing in the news. In many ways, it's maybe a tiny, dark preamble to all of that stuff. It's a story about Cuba, the power of music, and a group of Cuban kids who decide to opt out in this crazy way that when Luis Treyes told us about it, we almost couldn't believe.
So the reason we called up Vladdy is that we wanted to hear the backstory of all of this.
Well, I was born in Pinar del Rio in 1964.
Tell me about what it was like for you to be a kid.
I was happy because in Cuba we didn't have any information. We didn't have any communication with anybody outside Cuba. And everything that we received, it was the news that the government want to give us to us.
Ser eternamente pobres.
He remembers listening to endless Fidel Castro speeches on the radio.
I remember when I was a kid in elementary, all the time they were teaching us that Russia
La Unión Soviética.
was the big country in the world, the big economy, and everything that we would hope is to be like them.
It was a given that he would get in line every year to get his toy.
I only got 3 toys every year.
Because of rationing?
Exactly. And then every week, he and his folks would wake up, they would go to the nearest church.
To throw eggs at the church building.
Throw eggs
Yeah,
at the church?
Why?
Because we didn't believe in God. The government, they didn't believe in God,
That's how you showed you were a good revolutionary, and Vladimir was just being a good boy. But when he turns 14, day when a friend takes him aside and shows him a video of Led Zeppelin.
I remember that day. I remember like a...
Do you remember what Led Zeppelin song it was?
Kashmir.
Kashmir. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Kashmir. It was my first time I hear rock and roll music.
How did it make you feel when you heard Kashmir?
Well, different. You see Robert Plant, and you see Jimmy Page with those long hair and the move that they have. And the thing that they say, it was really different. And because of that, it was completely changed. Completely changed my life. Let me tell you, completely changed my life.
He's not sure why, but in that moment,
I went from a good example to freaky. I went to freaky.
What is freaky?
So freakies are what Cubans call the most extreme metalheads, hard rock, punk rockers.
We start wearing dirty clothes with holes, long hair.
Problem was,
the Cuban radio station didn't put any rock music. And I remember when I was 19 years old, 20 years old, my father gave me a Russian radio, and it was a good FM. We went to the roof of some friends because in those roofs you can listen to the station from Florida. Oh man, when we listen to Rolling Stone, Sympathy with the Devil. Hello, babe. Se me dijo, hello, baby. Man. Barry Manilow. We were excited to listen to Barry Manilow. I didn't like it, no? But in the beginning, every from there in English, it was good, you know, because I don't know, that kind of music give us another door.
So Gladys walking around with ripped jeans, long hair, and that's fine. It's a normal youth rebellion. But then, in the late 80s, everything changes.
Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The wall went down.
They are here in the thousands, they are here in the tens of thousands.
And in reaction,
Ellos murieron por el socialismo.
the Castro government dug in.
Ellos murieron por el internacionalismo.
Fidel says,
Socialismo
socialism
o muerte.
or death.
His slogan is painted freshly all over Havana: socialism or death.
Suddenly, music you listened to became very ideological, and if you listened to rock, you were listening to the enemy of the Cuban state, the United States.
The government created a police presence in every neighborhood, every 5 blocks.
And Vladimir says, if the police found you and you had long hair,
They'd beat us, kick us.
send you away to work cutting sugarcane in the cane fields.
That's like that. Boom.
In school, they'd often cut your hair against your will.
It was abuse.
And just to jump in, this is the point in the story where things take a very, no other way to say it, a very punk rock turn. Because into this cultural war
steps a guy named
Papo.
Papo.
We name him El Papo La Bala.
Papo La Bala, you know, Papo the Bullet. I really want to say that he tried to embody that kind of bullet to your brain, that wake up.
That's Bob Arellano. He's a professor at Southern Oregon University. He went several times in the 90s to Cuba to interview Papo,
Who he calls the Kurt Cobain of the Freakies. Yeah, he looked very intense. He was cocky and confident and just charismatic.
Super tall.
Skinny?
Yeah, he always wear a American flag.
Oh, yeah.
He,
like a bandana.
He usually.
Those are two friends of Papo's, Jesus Diaz and Luis Hernandez, who was also a bandmate of his.
Yo recuerdo que una vez, cuando él vino a visitarme ahí a mi casa, ahí donde vivía.
So Luis remembers the first time he met Papo, and it was on a night that a Communist Party meeting was right outside his house.
Outside the building, and when Papo is coming, he's coming in a bicycle, and his head a flag, United States flag, and when he's coming,
on his head.
Yeah, my father going down. Él se escondió.
Your father hid. Your father hid when he saw him coming with the American flag on his head.
Yeah, el padre mío se escondió en el balcón y le dijo, Papo, tú estás loco. Are you crazy? Taking your flag out of your head. And Papo said, why? And everyone outside the building, silence.
Papo was a weird guy.
Soy de aquí, esta provincia, Pinar del Río, nacido aquí mismo. Hijo de familia de padres humildes.
You can see video of Papo because Vladimir shot a documentary in 1994 where he interviewed Papo and some of the other freakies. And in that documentary, Papo talks about growing up poor.
Father is an alcoholic. Mother abandoned.
Dar por ello sea lo que nosotros le llamamos en guerrilla.
By age 14, he's in the streets. And a few years later, he makes a decision that's really at the heart of this story.
La enfermedad por el régimen, porque la policía me tenía socada.
Just to set it up so that you can understand the context.
What happened was that in 1989, I think, or 1990,
somewhere around there, the Cuban government is fighting in Angola. It's backing a leftist liberation movement, and it's kind of a proxy war with the United States. And in the late 80s, Cuban soldiers start coming back home.
And some soldiers from the Cuban army that were in Africa, they came with HIV positive. And because of that, the government has all the people in Cuba tested with HIV.
If you belong to a high-risk group, you were tested.
They went to your place of work, they went to your apartment, they went to the school, they went to Everybody.
Wow.
I remember they went to my wall and they test everybody over there in the radio station. 50 people over there.
Wow.
Give me your blood, give me your blood, give me your blood, give me your blood.
Vladdy says they would come in, take your blood, and if they found that you were positive,
The police came, put you in the police car, and go straight to the sanatorium.
They just locked you up.
yeah.
And I remember one day I was talking to him.
Papo and his wife.
Papo said, look, carajo, yo no quiero vivir aquí en este sistema que me está llevando a donde me está llevando, you know? I want to live free. Look, they're kicking me out, they're beating me out, they don't want me to live like a rocker here. They are doing a lot of things to me. I'm going to do a lot of things to them. And he told me, look, I went to this rock concert in Villa Clara.
Papa told him I met up with these other rockers. They were HIV positive, and I went and took a syringe, drew some blood from their arm, and I put the needle in my own arm.
And I inject myself with HIV. I inject myself with blood contaminated with HIV, you know. And I look at him and said, man, do you know what you did? Do you know what are you doing? You're gonna die, man. And he said to me, I don't care.
That's crazy, though.
It was crazy.
He knew for sure that when he did that, that was a death sentence?
For him, yes. He knows.
Vladimir's not quite sure that the others that came after Papo really knew what they were doing, but Papo knew.
Remember, he said socialismo
o muerte.
or death. And Papo said to me, death is a door. When you don't have any more doors to open, death is a door.
Coming up, that door gets wider, others walk through. And for at least a beat, they find something besides death, something quite the opposite.
Heyo, Lulu here. As you have likely heard, this summer the federal government defunded public media in America. Here at WNYC, that has resulted in a loss of $3 million each year that we cannot count on anymore. But while we may have been defunded, we have not been defeated, and that is where you, just maybe you, come in. If you have never supported Radiolab before, consider tossing a few bucks each month our way. The best way to do that is to join our membership program, The Lab. Go online, click, and then for $7 a month, boom, you are supporting our team. And as a thank you this month, we will mail you a brand new, beautifully designed jumbo tote bag, one of those ones that can fit like all your beach stuff and your big grocery hauls. It will not fit, however, our gratitude. If the mission of public radio means something to you, if Radiolab means something to you, your support right now means more than ever. Please go on over to members.radiolab.org and check out what it takes to become a member. Check out the new design of the gorgeous tote bag, which has a sort of aquatic theme because of all the aquatic stories that we randomly did this year. One more time, members.radiolab.org. Check it out. Thank you so much for listening and standing with us when we need you the most.
Hey, I'm Jad Abumrad. This is Radiolab.
Yes, 1 2 1 2, mic check.
That's Luis Treyes of Radio Ambulante. Let's go back to his story about Cuba and music in the late 80s and 90s. And so far, a dude has made a crazy decision, a dude named Papo, to inject himself with HIV. Would you call it a protest?
I think Papo would have called it a protest, but not the guys that came after.
This is at a moment when there was a cultural war happening between the Castro government and anyone it deemed antisocial, which included kids with long hair who listened to rock. And it was also a moment where if you were found to be HIV positive in Cuba, you were forcibly quarantined.
So Papo injects himself and he gets sent to the sanitarium.
And can you describe that place? Like, what did he find?
Well, he found a beautiful place in the middle of the Pinar del Rio countryside.
Really?
It's full of palm trees, very green, very lush, farm animals roaming in.
Huh. And you went there?
Yes, I was there. I was there, and there are still farm animals over there. Actually, they would roam in as goats and chickens. It's like kind of an idyllic place. So I went there to visit the last two rockers that still remain in the place. Gerson Gouveia and his wife, Yoandra. and they're kind of like the keepers of all that went down in there, the memories. So I spent a couple of days with them, and they walked me around, and it's full of like these little housing units.
And you're saying this place was idyllic even back then?
Yeah. Gerson and Joandra are walking me through it, and they're like, okay, so we would be walking around here 10 years ago, and Nirvana would be coming out of here.
Ahí hay de todo. Nirvana. Tengo Metallica.
Metallica would be coming out of the next house.
CDC, Zeppelin.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it was like Headbangers Ball in Pinar del Rio, you know?
Wait, but why? I mean, how come they were able to have that freedom in the sanatorium but not outside?
Initially, the sanitarium system was under the military, and it was more of a gulag. But in the late 80s, early 90s, the sanitariums went from the military being in charge to the Ministry of Health and Medicine.
Huh.
And these were, by all accounts, very progressive doctors, very concerned about their patients. They gave them all the food and medicine they needed. And they were like walk out, go ahead.
So it's like a prison, but it was also kind of a little bubble of freedom.
Yeah. And strangely enough, they soon found out that they even had power.
No, por eso me dejan.
A power they didn't have. Vladdy told me the story. The patients inside the sanitarium could go out every 21 days for a day trip. And some of the freakies would go out, and just by flashing their ID card that they were AIDS patients, police would leave them alone.
I remember 2 or 3 occasions that the police came after them, and one of them has a syringe full of blood.
And Vladdy says the guy took out the blood and waved it at the police.
And said, you want to come to me? Come on. Came to me. And they were afraid of that.
And so word began to spread about what life is like inside the sanitarium. And you have to keep in mind that outside, Cuba was falling apart.
Hard economic times in Cuba. The government today tightened bread rationing and raised egg prices. It blamed delays in Soviet shipments to Cuba.
Almost overnight, after the fall of the Soviet Union, Cuba was left without the massive subsidies it used to get. That meant
long lines for bread, short tempers.
We were suffering.
Vladimir Ceballos, who never actually lived inside the sanitarium, he says that people outside were going hungry, and he himself...
I was weighing like 100 pounds, 98 pounds.
Oh my God.
And things just kept getting worse.
You see like a
hungry, sunburned, dehydrated.
50,000 people leave Cuba.
They managed to escape on a raft and make it to the Florida Keys. These days, more Cubans than ever are taking the risk.
It was the big crisis, you know, in the Clinton era. But
if you were in the sanatorium, you were fine.
Yeah, just being able to get milk and an egg and beans.
Bob Arellano says that was a big motivation for a lot of kids.
Yes, I'm not going to be harassed. Yes, I'm free. And yes, I also get meals.
And it went from being a couple of self-injectors, a couple of dozen self-injectors, to being hundreds.
Wow. And did the government know that this was happening?
Well,
Cuando me dijo que se había inyectado,
there's this Swedish documentary from the time. It's called Socialismo o Muerte, and in it there's this bishop of Havana.
En una ocasión tuve la oportunidad en una cena en la que coincidí.
His last name is Cespedes, and he says that he met some of the kids that were injecting themselves with AIDS, and that at a state dinner he approached Fidel
Castro.
He told him,
Hablé con él muy al principio de este fenómeno.
These kids, they're injecting themselves, and Fidel
Castro no sabía.
Couldn't believe it.
Recuerdo su frase que me dijo, yo sé que tú eres un hombre serio.
And then after that, in the pharmacy, they don't sell syringe anymore. They put a law that if you inject themselves with HIV, you're going to spend 8 years in prison. But
it didn't matter.
It was like a movement. It was like a movement.
And all of a sudden, you have all these bands forming across the island in different sanitariums. in the biggest one of them all, in Santiago de la Vega, Los Cocos, which is like a half hour, 45 minutes south of Havana, you have the first group that gets formed. It's called VIH, which translates to HIV. But then in the center of the island, in this town called Santa Clara, you had the Cuban punk band Escoria, and Escoria translates as
Scum, right? Escoria.
And according to Bob, if you look back to the 80s, the people who were fleeing Cuba,
The balseros, the rafters, one of the responses of the Cuban government were billboards that said, "Que vaya la escoria," que se vayan, let the scum go. So to call yourself escoria, to call yourself scum,
that
is punk rock.
And were these bands big outside the sanatorium too?
Escoria is, I mean, you can't talk about Cuban punk without, I mean, Escoria is like...
So their tapes got out or something?
Yeah, totally.
And what happens next? I mean, these bands are forming, kids are self-injecting. Does it just keep growing and growing?
Yeah.
Pero ya era una cosa que uno sentía ya que ya era parte de...
There's tape of Gerson and Joandra saying that it got to be so fashionable that kids started to think that in order to be a freaky, you had to have AIDS. Like it was, yeah, no, there was a tape of Joandra saying...
Y muchos rockeros también que le decían a los otros, no, porque si tú no te inyectas sida, tú no eres rockero.
Which is, and the kids were saying that if you really wanted to be a rocker in that time, you had to have AIDS.
It's like the fact that it went from 10 or 20 to 200 or more was obviously like this kind of just joiner phenomenon of like, that's so cool, I'm going to do it too.
No es una prisión como...
There was even talk among some of the young people I met of thinking that, oh, eventually Fidel and those guys will find a cure.
You're going to find a cure for this.
Cuba with one of the best health care systems in the Western Hemisphere.
We're going to live forever. But everything to change when the first of them died.
According to Vladi, the first kid that died in Pinar del Rio was a guy named Manuel. We don't know his last name or his age.
He was the first. And when the second died, and when the third died, everything stopped.
At one point in Vladi's documentary, which was made in 1994, Papo says that in 2 years,
18 fallecidos.
about 18 people died.
Eso no se sabe por qué.
And they start seeing how you die, because you don't die like a normal person and had a heart attack or anything. No, you transform yourself.
A lot of them went blind, then they went insane. They started getting opportunistic diseases, you know how AIDS works.
Seeing that, they start thinking about what they did.
Did kids start saying they wish they hadn't done this?
Well, when you see Vladi's documentary and that Swedish documentary, Socialismo Muerte, which was made in 1995, you definitely see the kids having deep regrets. You have one of them saying, I regret this. I regret it 1,000,000 times.
How about Papo?
Well, I never heard Papo ever question that he had done it. And in that Swedish documentary, there's a scene towards the end where you see Papo and he's clearly sick. He's real thin, his face is swollen.
Siempre quise darle a conocer esto al mundo.
And we see him stepping into an evangelical church. He's wearing a Nirvana t-shirt, but he's become a fervent Christian.
Really?
He's found this community of evangelical Christians that accepts AIDS patients, and he's still taunting the government. He says,
El cristianismo pudiera ser lo mismo que el comunismo. Si el comunismo llegaría a ser como dicen que debe ser.
he's still a rocker, and that he thinks that Christ is the perfect communist. If more communists were like the Christians, that would be perfect. It's interesting though, because in that last video, we also see him taking English classes.
I'm here. Morning. How are you? I'm fine. And you?
And he's saying like, you know,
Yo me olvido de que soy enfermo.
the other patients in the sanitarium, they're like sick like me.
No quieren pasar trabajo.
They won't go out at night.
No quieren dejar una noche sin comer.
They won't rock out till the early morning. But I'm like,
¿Entiendes? Pero yo no.
this is my life.
So he was sort of defiant at the end.
Yeah.
Sí, él echaba sangre cuando murió por los oídos, por la nariz, por los ojos, por la boca.
And a few months later, according to Gerson, Papo started to bleed out from his mouth
Y perdió la mente delirando
and eyes.
porque era un parásito comiéndole el cerebro.
He had a parasite in his brain. He became violent, and he died from that disease.
Entonces, como ni conocía, y al final.
God, part of me wonders, like, is this strong and fierce, or is it just dumb and sad? And maybe fierce also. Like, I can't figure out how to feel about this.
Yeah, well, I think it can be all those things, right? It was dumb and stupid and immature, and it was also nihilistic and anarchic.
And do you think in the end it had any impact?
Well, that's hard to say. It must have. It must have.
Here's how Luis puts it. Not even 5 years after Papo died, things did start to shift in Cuba. Make of it what you will, but December 8th, 2000, Castro unveils the statue of John Lennon. That same year, Bob Ariano and a bunch of rock musicians,
including Will Oldham, David Pajo.
They're given permission to play a bunch of rock shows in Cuba, out in the open, and at one of those shows in Pinar del Rio,
I announced, listen, we're going to send out this next number to Papo La Bala and the Freakies.
And she's dying to stay away
And everyone sang along.
now it would be impossible to draw any kind of cause and effect and say one thing led to another. That would be ridiculous. But Luis says that back when the Freakies were streaming into the sanatorium,
Cuba wasn't changing back then. It started to change precisely because of 100 gestures, big and small.
he says around Cuba at that moment there are all of these tiny, mostly silent protests taking hold.
And then you have the Maleconazo, which was like the first serious civil disobedience that Castro had in 94, where just the mob in Havana rose up because they were so tired of the power outages. They were angry at their poor living conditions. They were leading the city in rafts by the thousands, by the hundreds. Castro literally had to come down to the Cuban Malecon, the beautiful seaside road that circles around Havana, and he literally had to talk the mob down.
So at this moment, you know, late 80s, early 90s,
There's this breeding ground of discontent all over Cuba, and I think the self-injector movement is the best crystallization we have of that.
it's like this sort of 1,000 points of light, and this is the brightest point,
Right.
or the darkest point, frankly.
Right, exactly.
Y es mentira lo que estoy diciendo, no soy un borracho, me paso la vida tirado, soy un perro vago, difícil ser un carnero, vencer a nada de, prefiero seguir siendo lo que soy, prefiero ser un indeseable, y aunque yo lo intente, nunca cambiaré, me gusta estar en la mugre, y así yo moriré.
Okay, so it's Latif here again. Now, the reporter who reported this story back in 2015, Luis Treyes, has an update for you from now, 2025. So here it is.
Since the story first ran, Bob Arellano has continued traveling to Cuba to work with Vladimir Ceballos on a documentary about the self-injector movement and the Cuban rock scene. I've stayed in touch with Gerson. He's the self-injected punk rocker I visited in the abandoned sanatorium. He's still living there, along with his partner, Yolanda. He tells me that with Cuba's deep political and economic crisis, it's hard to be in a punk band. His town has 18-hour blackouts, and even plugging in a guitar is tough. But Gerson says he still thinks about Papo La Bala. He says that in today's Cuba, Papa would be doing the same thing he did when he was alive. He would be finding a way to stay true to himself and keeping it metal.
Huge thank you to Luis, editor on the Embedded podcast. That's NPR's home for deeply reported narrative series. And thank you to Radio Ambulante. We were so excited to collaborate with them back in 2015. And thank you to Daniel Alarcón for making that collaboration possible. Radio Ambulante's new season, which is its 15th season, launches on September 30th. If you don't know them, check it out, radioambulante.org. They tell these incredible stories from around the Spanish-speaking world in Spanish. Back in 2015, they also created a Spanish version, a Spanish language version of this story, which goes kind of in a different direction. It goes way more in depth into Luis's visit to Cuba and the story of Gerson and Johandra, the last two remaining self-infected freakies. Thank you to Vladimir Ceballos and Bob Arellano for the use of their documentaries, and to Alio Dai and the Cuban punk bands HIV and Escoria for their original music in this episode. I'm Latif Nasser. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Marcela, and I'm from Quetzaltenango, Guatemala. And here are the staff credits. Radiolab was created by Jad Abumrad and is edited by Soren Wheeler. Lulu Miller and Latif Nasser are our co-hosts. Dylan Keefe is our director of sound design. Our staff includes Simon Adler, Jeremy Bloom, W. Harry Fortuna, David Gable, Maria Paz Gutierrez, Sindhu Nyama Sambandan, Matt Hilty, Annie McEwen, Alex Neeson, Sarah Carey, Sarah Sandak, Anissa Beats, Ariane Wack, Pat Walters, Molly Webster, Jessica Young, with help from Rebecca Rand. Our fact checkers are Diane Kelly, Emily Krieger, Anna Pujol Mazzini, and Natalie Middleton.
Hi, this is Celeste calling from Utah. Leadership support for Radiolab science programming is provided by the Simons Foundation and the John Templeton Foundation. Foundational support for Radiolab is provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation.
I'm Ira Flato, host of Science Friday. For over 30 years, our team has been reporting high-quality news about science, technology, and medicine. News you won't get anywhere else. And now that political news is 24/7, our audience is turning to us to know about the really important stuff in their lives. Cancer, climate change, genetic engineering, childhood diseases. Our sponsors know the value of science and health news. For more sponsorship information, visit sponsorship.wnyc.org.
限制的话，这件事情 AI 无法帮你做到，因为你是喜欢打球，我自己去打的；你是喜欢打电脑，我自己去打的。这些事情我要自己做，不用别人帮我做。我要自己做才会快乐，我要自己做才是我的。我要自己做，它才是我想美丽的样子。不用别人帮我弄，只要我自己做。因为我已经掌握了游戏方式，这是属于会师的游戏。来，最后点缀。这个时候呢，才是特效比刷。然后呢，就可以随心所欲变成其他不认得的东西。最后签了名，状态好的时候呢，落款呢也可以苍劲原地。以上给大家带来神比赛。如果大家觉得这是一支有趣的笔刷啊，也想试试看的话，那恭喜大家，这支笔刷网络上找都有，而且呢，这支笔刷呢，你用到的软体都通用，好比 Procreate、CSP 都可以用。你只要先找到点 AVR 的笔刷，然后呢，它就可以直接汇入到其他的那个绘图软体里面去。那当然我不保证小画家行不行啊，但是大家爱用的 CSP 一定可以。OK。好，那如果你们觉得我们的这个介绍单元有趣的话，我们以后再多做一点哦。目前呢是我觉得一定要推荐给大家的，你想要进入一种绘图的创作领域，你一定要正视这个领域。
Wait, you're the.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
to Radio Lab.
Radio
From
WNYC.
The call was coming from the night. It was eerie, like a foghorn from another dimension rolling through the mists of San Francisco Bay. This is an actual recording of the sound, which was plaguing residents of San Francisco in the late 1980s. People had all kinds of theories about what it might be. Secret government activities, submarines, offshore drilling, UFOs. Whatever it was so powerful, it was rattling the houseboats of the bay.
I'm Latif Nasser.
I'm Lulu Miller.
This is Radio Lab, and it is with that mystery that we kicked off our latest live show about voids.
Which we perform beneath the void of the night sky at this gorgeous venue called Little Island in New York City. It sits right alongside the Hudson River. Itself empties out into the void of the ocean.
You're right. And so in that place, in that very void adjacent place, we wanted to make an episode about, not just about voids, about people reckoning with voids, standing on the edge of them, trying to decipher the sounds coming out of them, trying to measure them, trying to decide whether or not to scream into them.
3 stories, one by Latif, one by senior producer Matt Kilty, one by me, plus a little extra special bonus by a guest at the very end.
Yeah. So as we head into the fall, we hope you enjoy this end of summer experiment we did. And let's pick back up with that mystery hum.
Yes. Let me introduce you to a guy who knew exactly what it was.
As musicians have told me, it sounds like a didgeridoo. Oh, I'm mispronouncing that.
Oh yeah, didgeridoo.
Didgeridoo, yes.
That is Dr. Andrew Bass, a scientist at Cornell who for decades has been studying the entity that makes this sound. An entity which is a bottom-dwelling fish.
They've sometimes been referred to as the ugliest fish in the sea.
They are certainly a contender.
Yeah, it's not like looking at a reef fish, right?
Picture a frog. Now melt it. Add a set of deranged teeth. Luckily for this little guy, who is often called the California singing fish, it's not his looks, but his song that attracts a mate. The way that he sings his song is by using an organ that's a little like a drum inside his chest. It's an inflated swim bladder against which he strikes not a mallet, but a set of very powerful muscles that he vibrates faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until it releases this Sometimes hundreds of them will gather and sing all at once in unison for over 2 hours. All of their melodies and harmonics swirling together until the sound jumps dimensions, becomes audible above water.
It's mesmerizing. It's almost like, forgive me if I say this, it's almost like a lullaby, I think.
And if their siren song works as well on a female fish as it does on Dr. Bass, she will follow him to the source of the sound, which is a little hideout beneath a rock that he has dug out just for her in the shallow end of the sea. And there he will keep singing, trying to impress her, singing out his different yearnings and melodies and rhythms, impressing her with his stamina. Now, of course, singing out into a void like this can come with a risk. You make yourself known.
You'll see gulls fly in and grab them.
Wow.
They'll take them.
Oh.
And there are reports even of eagles sweeping down and taking them out of the water.
But it can also sometimes come with a reward. If the
her to distribute them?
Well, yeah. This is like amazing. This is actually, so I have to tell you, my wife, her name is Margaret Washington, who's worked with me closely on this over the years.
Yeah.
She's the one who's made some really amazing videos showing this.
Oh, neat.
Right? You see something like that and you go, wow. That is such a sophisticated behavior and a delicate behavior.
This delicate scene lasts about 24 hours, and then the female fish swims away. In this species, it is the male that tends to the children, to the babies until they are hatched for weeks. Over the decades, Dr. Bass has made dozens of incredible discoveries about these fish. How they sing and why they sing, and how the circuits in their brain that let them sing look eerily similar to the ones in our brain that let us talk. But none of that is why I called Dr. Bass. Because in the 1980s, he made a discovery that to me is far wilder, something he never expected to see, which is that inside this chorus of blustery singing males, there is a second type of male, a male that lacks the musculature to sing, a silent male. When I first heard about this little guy, I fell in love. This little slice of quiet in the din, I felt so much affection for him. Because it seemed to me he had found a way to articulate the value of silence. He's not a fluke in the gene pool. In some populations, up to 1 in every 10 males is anatomically silent. And so I wondered, there must be something about him that allows him to persist, something that the female is choosing over these vocalizing counterpoints. I pictured a fin, something that was gorgeous but invisible to most, but through negative space looked like prize or attribute to some. These are all fancy words for saying I am so sick of words. Does anyone else feel that? The more I use them for a living, the more I've come to mistrust them, that they are just these noisy puffs of hot air, laden not only with anger and violence and insecurity, but so many untruths. That despite the etymology of communication meaning to share, that words are distancing. As I sink, should have a better word for sink. As I luxuriate into middle age, into mothering, into marriage, I find myself more and more turning to silence. As anger rises in me, or yearning, I turn to silence to coexist, to connect, to memory, to encounter some bit of good left in another person, left in this burning and blustery world. And so I wondered, was there any way that what was going on in the fish could explain this? That the female fish was choosing the male, just a more pure and honest offering of self. So I asked Dr. Bass, so the silent male, does he use silence in a way that's analogous to like a rack of tail feathers or gorgeous antlers? Like, is the silence a feature that he's actually like a way that he can like actively attract a female?
Yeah. You know, that's a really good question. We have no evidence to support what you just said.
Okay, so then how does the silent male get the girl?
Well,
to get the girl, Dr. Bass explained, first of all, you need to know that they don't call him the silent male, but rather
sneaker male.
And when you say sneaker male, it's not because he's sporting cool Reeboks. What do you mean?
In other words, these were fishes that would sneak into the nest of another male to try to steal fertilizations from them.
Okay, so sneaky, skulking, stealth.
Yeah,
okay,
essentially,
okay.
Yeah, sneaky. What we observed was that these smaller males would literally sneak in. So the male already has a female in his nest.
So, okay, so we're at the point where our singer has He has sung his little heart out. He's attracted her, and it's that 24-hour window while she's in there, and he's like caressing her to help her lay the eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what happens with this silent male?
He tries to sneak into the nest. And now,
So wait, there'd be 3 of them in there?
yeah.
Okay.
Now here's the dilemma for that male who produced the hum and attracted
Yeah.
the female.
Yeah.
Well, what do? Do I focus on trying to fertilize the eggs, or
Like-
chasing that other male out of the nest?
Because I was gonna ask, like the
What do I
singing male, when he's helping position her, is he
Yeah.
fertilizing that whole time, or does he wait till she's gone, or he's like right away?
He's fertilizing the whole time. If she deposits an egg, he fertilizes it.
Okay.
I
Just for
know.
like 24 hours straight.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the sneaker male will release more. You can almost see like a solid thread of sperm being released.
Oh, with the
into
naked
that.
eye?
Yeah.
Whereas with the singing male, you can't?
No, because their vent is right up. They're right up against the egg, right?
Oh, I
So
don't
they
know.
have the advantage of proximity. So
Okay.
here's the thing: why would the little guy try to release lots of sperm? Well, he's trying to flood the other sperm. So his fertilize the egg before the other one.
Okay, so the singing male he's up close and he's like going egg by egg, like
Yeah.
here's the sperm, here's the and then from like further away, Rambo style, the sneaker male's like
Yeah.
shooting a ton.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. To put it simply.
And then he is gone. The silent male back to the depths, leaving the singing male to care for his babies. For weeks, the singing male uses his voice to bark away predators, foregoing food so that he emerges as a near skeleton to let the silent male's babies hatch and grow. As I think about this silent male, I picture him alone and happy and carefree and healthy in the deep. I see his silence anew. Like it sounds aggressive, violent, cowardly, deceptive. Like
Ooh, those
he
are
doesn't,
strong words.
but he doesn't sound admirable.
No, he doesn't.
Those words, of course, are not meant for fish, for creatures who have no way other than to behave how they might behave to survive. Those words are meant for people like me, who have the choice to become unsilent, to heave up from that cozy refuge of silence, and risk disinterest, ridicule, and attack, to sing out what is true in you, what is angry and yearning and real, and just might make enough vibrations to change, or at least rattle, the rusting fixtures of this world. Thank you, guys. When we come back, we are headed out of the sea and up to the stars. I'm Lulu, and this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Picture it. You're at the salon getting a new haircut. You look in the mirror and begin to think about some of your latest mess ups, some breakups, some things you did wrong, and the words slip out of your mouth. You begin sharing your problems with your hairdresser, and they listen. But is that where you should be bringing your problems? Should they have to be the ones to help you fix it? No. They went to school to make you look as dapper as possible beneath the strings of dead keratinized cells known as your hair. If you're looking for help with anxiety, depression, relationships, communication, or other clinical issues, do the hairdressers in your life a favor and get guidance from a licensed therapist, someone trained in the art of helping you find you. BetterHelp provides access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise online at the push of a button. Find your mental fit at BetterHelp.com. Go to BetterHelp.com/Radiolab to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/Radiolab. And listen to your hairdresser for a change.
story of Star Trek's most legendary villain. Kirk did us a favor. From this quintessence of dust, we will rise. Listen to Star Trek Khan, wherever you get your podcasts.
Lulu,
What if?
Radio Lab, on with our show about boys. Okay, so imagine all the lights are off. You're staring at the stage behind which is the river, behind which is the New Jersey shoreline. All of a sudden, a spotlight comes on and illuminates a man standing way up high on a scaffold.
Hey everybody. Don't mind me, I've just been hanging out up here for a little while. I'm a producer at Radio Lab. My name is Matt Kilty. Please join me in casting your eyes out to the sublime, the awe-inspiring New Jersey. Now, pretend it doesn't exist, which really shouldn't be that hard to do. Instead, just imagine it's just ocean. The sea, as far as you can see. Now, thousands of years ago, that sea that you're imagining in your mind's eye was thought of as a river that circled all of Earth. And the thing that was big, enormous, the thing that we thought was at the center of the Earth, the center of the universe really, was the land underneath our feet. The ocean was just this kind of tidy boundary that seemed to surround this big island we were floating on. And this idea, you can trace it back the world over: ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, Babylon. The Greeks handed it down to the Romans. It persisted into the Middle Ages. This idea that the sea, at least on paper, was contained. But then, the Europeans, they started building bigger ships. They started venturing further out. And as they did, the sea began to expand. There was Columbus.
His day, we completely lost sight of land,
1492, trying to find India.
and many men sighed, cried, for fear they would not see land again in a long time.
Nobody see it for 33 days.
Hitherto, no land appeared before us.
1501, Amerigo Vespucci,
The vast sea.
sailing south across the Atlantic.
We all would have died of hunger
1520, Magellan crosses the Pacific.
in that exceedingly vast sea.
And in 1580, Sir Francis Drake goes 2 whole months without seeing land, 10,000 total miles around the globe, proving for the first time ever that the sea, in a sense, is never ending. And with that, in a matter of a century, the ocean went from something that was contained to something that was terrifyingly, staggeringly huge. As these explorers mapped out the oceans, we began to realize that we were just simply a speck floating on this vast, churning sea. And to stand on any shore and look out across that vastness,
To gaze into the depths of the sea is in the imagination like beholding the vast unknown.
that's writer Victor Hugo in 1866. And for him, and others like him, painters, philosophers, poets, the sea became this place to go to contemplate our very own existence. I'm going to wait for the helicopter at this pivotal juncture. I'm giving it a second. I'm giving it 5 seconds. Giving it 10 seconds. So we contemplated the smallness of it in the face of such enormity. Hit it, Victor.
Analogous to the realm of night and dreams.
All right, it was incredible, but that was then, and this is now. And if you are one of those people who still looks out across an ocean, you feel a sense of awe and wonder and a little bit of terror. Well, I'm sorry, but you're a child. I don't know what to tell you. It's really not that big of a deal. It's like a 6-hour flight to Europe, which is probably what you're looking at. That's it. And I mean, I don't know, to be fair, for like 300 years or whatever, this ocean was kind of like the biggest thing any of us could conceive of. There was nothing bigger. Until some very obsessive team of astronomers, all men, would sit in the Harvard Observatory and they would point an 11-foot-long telescope into the night sky. And then they would open the shutter, and the telescope on a clock-driven mount would move in time with the rotation of the Earth so that the faint light of the stars would stay fixed in relation to it. They would move at the same rate. Telescope, stars, and lockstep together. And for 30 minutes, maybe an hour, that faint light would come rushing down the telescope onto this glass plate about the size of a notebook that was covered in this emulsion. The light would hit the plate, and slowly little dots would start to emerge. Stars, hundreds of them, thousands of them, tiny little individual ones, big clusters of stars, all of them trapped within this glass plate. Think of it like a photograph of the night sky captured on the glass. The plate would then be marked with date and time and sent over across the street to this brick building that was full of computers. These are maybe people you've heard of, the Harvard computers. These are the women who were not allowed to work in the observatory because of the patriarchy, but they could go to this brick building where they were essentially computing the data of the dots on the plate of the stars. So their job was to figure out, like, you know, the positions of the stars, or if a star was actually a star or just like a speck of something or whatever. All of this was a part of our most significant attempt at cataloging the heavens. Now, one of these computers was a woman named Henrietta Leavitt. Got some fans in the house. So, Leavitt started at the observatory at the age of 25. She was a former lit major who her senior year took an astronomy class and was just like, I have no idea. She didn't write anything about what she experienced in that moment, but whatever it was, it had to be profound, because after that, for 30 cents an hour, she would go to this brick building, sit with about a dozen other women, and using a magnifying glass, she would study plate after plate after plate. And her job was to mark any star that she saw on these plates that were variable stars. What's a variable star? Great question, astute listener. So, variable star is a star that over time varies in brightness. So some nights it appears a little bit dimmer, some nights it appears a little bit brighter. This is just a thing that some stars do over the course of their life. So her job was basically to look for these dots on thousands of these glass plates that were getting lighter and darker and lighter and darker, and then circle them. Over the course of 28 years, she finds 2,400 of them, and that's it. That is her job. But it was in the midst of this, in the midst of these 28 years, where something incredible happens. The thing that would shift our gaze, our deepest sense of awe and wonder as a species, from the sea to the stars. So, Leavitt's doing her job day in and day out when she comes across this one plate, a plate that contains the Magellanic Clouds, which is just like a cluster of stars close together that look like a cloud in the night sky. Now, this was crucial. Nobody knew how far that cloud was from Earth. In fact, we knew very little about how far anything was from Earth. We had an approximate distance to the sun, to the moon, a few nearby stars, but that was pretty much it. Beyond that, we really had no idea. Mainly because we didn't have a good way to measure anything in space. We didn't have like a yardstick. And so what we had settled on was this idea that everything in the night sky, all of it, was a part of our Milky Way galaxy. And that we here on Earth, we were floating in the center of the Milky Way, and that was the entire universe, us right there in the center. But this plate was about to change that. Because Leavitt noticed this pattern, which was the bright stars, the bright variable stars that she was circling on this plate in the cluster, they varied really slowly. So it took them a long time to go from bright to dark, bright to dark. It was almost like uniform, so like the brighter the star, the slower it would flicker. And she's like, oh, okay, there's a little pattern here. So she goes looking for it in the other stars in the cluster, and she finds, sure enough, that the dim stars, they varied more quickly. And this pattern, it was really reliable, so reliable in fact, that one could use the time it takes for a star to flicker to just whoop on a graph, figure out the brightness of that star, which, I don't know, probably doesn't sound that important to anybody here, but this is a thing that would truly crack open the universe. Because, and this had always been the problem about figuring out distance in space. Like, let's say you're looking at a bright star in the night sky. Well, how do you know that bright star isn't just, like, really close to you? Or a dim star, is that a star that's really far away, or is it just a dim star? Nobody knew how to answer these questions, but suddenly Leavitt could. The rate at which a star flickers tells you its intrinsic brightness, and once you figure out the brightness with some fancy math, you can start to figure out distances. And so if we jump ahead 10 years after Leavitt plots out this pattern, publishes it in a paper, in the 1920s, Edwin Hubble is out in California with what was then the world's largest telescope. He's pointing it up at another cluster of stars called the Andromeda Cluster. And like I said, at that time, people deeply believed that our entire universe was the Milky Way, but Hubble had suspected different. He just never had a way to prove it. So there he is, pointing this incredible telescope up at the cluster, and in the cluster he sees a few stars. So he watches one of them, a star called V1, and he watches it go from bright to dark, bright to dark. Counts the number of days, grabs Leavitt's calculations, does a bunch of math, and he gets a number. An astonishing, unfathomable number. 900,000 light years away is that star from us, which is way outside of our Milky Way galaxy. And this is an important footnote, Hubble actually totally botched it. He's not even close. That star is not 900,000 light years away from us. It is in fact 2.5 million light years away. And just to like put this into perspective, if you think about it like this, so think of Earth as us here in New York City. The edge of the Milky Way galaxy, what we thought was our universe, is probably like out around Moscow. What Hubble was observing, what he was measuring, would be like from us here in New York to the moon. And in astronomy circles, this was huge news, because what it told us for the first time is that that cluster of stars isn't just a cluster of stars in our own galaxy, it is in fact a galaxy in and of itself. And so Hubble keeps at it, and he keeps pointing this telescope, and he finds another cluster of stars that is 2.73 million light years away. He finds another that's nearly 10 million light years away. Another that's 15 million light years away. Another that's 23 million light years away. And as he's measuring these galaxies, he realizes that they're all moving out away from each other. Out into what? Nobody knows. It is just trillions of galaxies expanding out into the infinite. And with that, suddenly, we were confronted by another sort of dark mirror. This one with tiny little specks of light, an even bigger void for us to confront. And it would take some time for people to start waxing on about the enormity of this void, conjuring up just how itty-bitty we really are. Where our eyes would start to turn away from the sea and up to the stars. A void that goes on forever. I mean, further than forever. A forever that is getting bigger with each passing moment that we sit here and contemplate it. And to do this, to gaze up into the depths of the universe is, as Victor Hugo might say, in the imagination, like beholding the vast unknown.
Executive producer, Matt Kilty. When we come back, it's time for Latif and aliens. Maybe.
untold story of Star Trek's most legendary villain. Kirk did us a favor. From this quintessence of dust, we will rise. Listen to Star Trek Khan, wherever you get your podcasts.
Lulu,
Latif.
Radio Lab.
And today we were playing a recording of a live show we did a few weeks ago in New York City. And for the last story, I'm taking you to space with a guy who is reaching out into that void.
Latif tells this one, and just to picture his stage entrance, it's completely dark, and then he is carried out on an orange armchair holding.
So I am in the middle of reading the book Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with my son. Yeah. And in the second book, there is this device called the Total Perspective Vortex. It's a closet-sized machine that you walk into, close the door behind you, and what it does is it shows you, like, really, truly shows you how small and insignificant you can be in the universe. And I should have mentioned, it's actually a torture device. No one has ever survived it because it is just that psychologically, cripplingly unbearable to know how trifling you are in the grand scheme of things. But I think there's something maybe even worse than knowing how small you are. And that is the possibility that we are all alone. How tragic would it be if, in all these trillions of galaxies that each have billions of stars, that each have umpteen planets, if nowhere in there was there a single friendly face or tentacle or, whatever else there might be. The cosmic loneliness is just too much to bear. It's like we're all a toddler wandering alone at night in the middle of the Sahara. When I got my first laptop in high school, it was a hand-me-down from my mom. It's like thick as a brick. And one of the first things that I did was I installed this program called SETI at Home. Has anybody heard of this? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Okay, a few people. All right. So SETI is this decades-old research organization. They, they're funded in part by NASA. It's a highly respectable thing. And the idea is in the title. It's SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. The reason I heard of it as a high school kid was I watched the movie Contact like 4 times in theaters in 1 week. I was just obsessed. And this program, what was so cool about it was it let you be Jodie Foster on the hood of her car with the headphones on, listening for alien signals. And the way it let you do that was it would like use your like, for me with my laptop, you would use your like spare compute time when you weren't using the computer. It would like analyze all these radio signals that were slurped up from all over the sky, and it would be looking for some kind of alien message. And I just remember this one night when I was in high school, I woke up and I like felt my laptop and it was super hot. And I was like, oh my God, is my computer discovering aliens right now? Cut to, years later, I start working at this show, Radio Lab, and one of the first people that I pitched to interview was this guy, Doug.
Testing. How are we doing?
Okay.
Are we recording now?
You sound great. Doug Bakpoch is his name. He worked at SETI, but unlike almost every other employee of SETI, he was not an astronomer. He was not a physicist specialized
radio telemetry or anything like that. He wasn't even a scientist. When I was prepping to interview him, I saw his resume, and he had just like all kinds of weird things on there. There was like he studied comparative religion, but he also studied like ecofeminism and psycholinguistics and just all these things I'd never even heard of. And so it would be years before the movie Arrival came out, but like Amy Adams in that movie, that's his job. He's an alien translator, and he told me that in the interview he had wanted this job. He had wanted to talk to aliens since he was a little boy.
I grew up as a kid on a farm out in a remote part of northern Minnesota. And so, especially on winter nights, you know, I would go outside and I would look up there, and it was just beautiful. It's breathtaking. But it also got me thinking, you know, I wonder if there are any kids out there on other planets who are looking up there and thinking the same sort of thing.
So initially he wanted to be an astronaut until he realized that like just space is too big. The distances are too vast. Like you can't actually go meet an alien face to face. You got to do it remote. So that's why he got obsessed with SETI. And he told me about how he basically made the job at SETI for himself. Like he bugged them until they hired him. And when I interviewed him, he had worked at SETI already for about 15 years. And so I asked him, like, okay, say an alien message appears out of the blue today, like how do you even start to translate this thing from intelligence is completely different, it's completely foreign, it's totally incomprehensible to us. And his answer was like, okay, well, you can't really know how you start until it actually comes and you see how it comes, But you actually don't have to go that far to practice.
What if you're talking about a planet, an exoplanet that has this murky cover where short, distance vision really isn't helpful? Then you have to use a sense of sound or a sense of touch or a sense of smell. So we look at other species here on Earth and say, how do they encounter the world? And what if there were an alien who used that as their primary way of engaging with their environment, with one another?
So it's like, okay, I'm going to go try to, talk to dolphins or octopi or something. Another way to practice, try to understand Mayan or Babylonian ruins. And so that was his job. He would practice this sort of thing every day, cracking codes and studying animal behavior and deciphering hieroglyphics. And then, we did that interview. It's great. A couple years later, the movie Arrival actually comes out, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh my, this is like that. All I could think about was Doug at SETI. So I called him up, but weirdly, this is what I heard on the other end of the line.
Thank you for calling Medi.
Wait, what the heck is Medi? And it turns out there's like a whole juicy backstory behind that single letter change. Tell me the origin story of Medi.
Yeah, the origin story was, sure, I had been making the case.
So he explained that for a long time, even before he started at SETI, he had this feeling that pointing our microphones towards the sky, that just wasn't enough.
The talks I was giving as a grad student were, and we should be transmitting too, and not just listening. And so I made that case over the years. The argument is everyone is sitting around waiting for someone else to take the initiative. And if everyone is simply doing what we are doing, simply sitting here and listening and not transmitting, it's going to be a really quiet universe.
It's like a high school prom or something, So Doug's like, come on, someone's got to say something, anything. It could be as simple as, just like a yoo-hoo, or it could be something more complicated, like something like, hey, we're a couple billion moderately intelligent carbon-based life forms on this third planet off of this particular yellow dwarf over here. So nice to meet you. We love long walks on the SETI board.
I was able to make my case, and I lost.
And one of the big reasons was that people were scared.
That came up when Stephen Hawking was promoting a new science documentary. He had a documentary, and he posed this provocative issue of, if the aliens transmit, don't respond, because, when we've seen contact between civilizations here on Earth, it often does not work well for the less advanced civilization. So, duck and cover.
One SETI researcher at Berkeley went on record saying that, quote, 98% of astronomers and SETI researchers, including myself, think that this is potentially dangerous and not a good idea. It's like shouting in a forest before you know if there are tigers, lions, bears, or other dangerous animals there. But Doug was like,
okay, look, the aliens know we're here. I mean, anyone with a technology, a SETI system, a little bit more advanced than us can already pick up our leakage radiation.
We've already been beaming out our TV and radio episodes for decades.
The cat's out of the bag.
So, he got together a bunch of other like-minded researchers, and they started METI.
For messaging extraterrestrial intelligence.
Are you like rival siblings? Like how would you describe it?
I think
Is there an analogy?
siblings with quite different interests. I mean, generally shared interests. We value science. We want to be doing these kind of things, but each of the kids has its own thing that they think is the most important thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We may never get the other one to agree with us, but it's okay.
Now, when I heard about Doug and METI, rather, I wasn't as much worried about the dark forest problem, but I was more like, who is this guy Doug who wants to speak for all humanity? And like, what kinds of things does he even want to be beaming out there on our behalf?
So some of them are very heavily based on math and send them in the form of a picture. Or some have said, oh, what we really want to do is we want to be able to engage. And we can't do that because of all of these distances. Let's send an AI. Once they have built it, on the other end, they can actually interact with it, and they'll be able to engage with it even at a distance. Others have said send something like music. In fact, I'm a strong advocate of using some of these telescopes that have multiple dishes and to turn those into an orchestra of a sort.
So in 2017, Doug and his team did it. They encoded a message into a radio signal. It was a mixture of math and electronic music, and they beamed it out from a giant radar antenna 8 miles southeast of the Norwegian city of Tromsø. The target was, as you obviously can see right here, it was a star called GJ273, or Luyten star, and its planets, which include at least one so-called super-Earth. It's a little over 12 light years away, which means the message is actually still on its way over there. It'll arrive in 2029 or thereabouts. And then best case scenario, or I guess worst case scenario if you're afraid of them, best case scenario, if there are beings out there and they are sentient enough to receive our message and have the technology to be able to respond, and they decide they want to do that right away, the earliest we would hear back is the early 2040s.
The biggest impact that we can make in terms of what we're going to be for another civilization is to show up and start. I mean, now we haven't shown up. I mean, if we have a reputation in the galaxy, we're lurkers.
That's funny.
They're there, but they're sure not saying anything. I think some of the big discoveries sometimes require a capacity to say what if, and then a willingness to follow through on it.
And in this case, a hope that there is someone out there listening. Thank you very much. We want to end this in which we've been looking out into the void by actually going out there, following in a sense, out into space, beyond our atmosphere, beyond our gravity, beyond our plodding earthly concerns, with an excerpt from a gorgeous novel, Orbital by Samantha Harvey, which tells the story of 6 astronauts on the International Space Station, spending most of their time not gazing out at the cosmos, but gazing down at us. It will be read by the brilliant artist, actress, host of the WQXR podcast, Helga. Please welcome Helga Davis.
At first, they're drawn to the views at night, the gorgeous encrusting of city lights, and the surface dazzle of man-made things. There's something so crisp and clear and purposeful about the Earth by night. Its thick, embroidered urban tapestries. Almost every mile of Europe's coastline is inhabited, and the whole continent outlined with fine precision, the city's constellations joined by the golden thread of roads. Those same golden threads track across the Alps, usually grayish blue with snowfall. At night, they can point to home. There's Seattle, Osaka, London, Bologna, St. Petersburg, and Moscow. Moscow, one enormous point of light, like the pole star in a shrill, clear sky. The night's electric excess takes their breath, the spread of life, the way the planet proclaims to the abyss. There is something and someone here, and how for all that, a sense of friendliness and peace prevails. Since even at night, there's only one man-made border in the whole of the world. A long trail between Pakistan and India. That's all civilization has to show for its divisions, and by day, even that is gone. Soon, things change. After a week or so of city awe, the senses begin to broaden and deepen, and it's the daytime Earth they come to love. It's the humanless simplicity of land and sea, the way the planet seems to breathe an animal unto itself. It's the planet's indifferent turning in indifferent space, in the perfection of the sphere which transcends all language. It's the black hole of the Pacific becoming a field of gold, or French Polynesia dotted below, the islands like cell samples. The atolls, opal lozenges. Then the spindle of Central America which drops away beneath them, now to bring to view the Bahamas and Florida. And the arc of smoking volcanoes on the Caribbean plate, Uzbekistan, in an expanse of ochre and brown. The snowy mountainous beauty of Kyrgyzstan. The clean, brilliant Indian Ocean of untold, the apricot desert of Taklamakan traced about with the faint confluencing and parting lines of creek banks. It's the diagonal beaten path of the galaxy, an invitation into the shunning void. So then, come discrepancies and gaps. They were warned in their training about the problem of dissonance. flows between land and sea, you'll see no countries, just a rolling, indivisible globe which knows no possibility of separation, let alone war. And you'll feel yourself pulled in directions at once. Exhilaration, anxiety, rapture, depression, tenderness, anger, hope, despair. Because of course you know that war abounds, and that borders are something that people will kill and die for. While up here there might be the small and distant rucking of land that tells of a mountain range, and there might be a vein that suggests a great river, but that's where it ends. There's no wall or barrier, no tribes, no war or corruption or cause for fear. Before long, for all of them, a desire takes hold. It's the desire, the need, fueled by fervor, to protect this huge yet tiny earth. This thing of such miraculous and bizarre loveliness. This thing that is, given the poor choice of alternatives, so unmistakably home. An unbounded place, a suspended jewel so shockingly bright. Can humans not find peace with one another? With the earth? It's not a fond wish, but a fretful demand. Can we not stop tyrannizing and destroying and ransacking and squandering this one thing on which our lives depend? Yet they hear the news and they've lived their lives, and their hope does not make them naive. So what do? What action to take? And what use are words? They're humans with a godly view. And that's the blessing. And also the curse.
And that, my friends, is our show.
That'll do it for today. Before we get to the credits, I wanted to just say thank you for listening to our voices as they warble out into the void over the years, reaching your ears, entertaining your ears, helping the mind inside your ears find meaning, understanding, and new questions is why we do it.
As you probably know, it has been a deeply unsettling summer for Radiolab and across public media. In July, Congress voted to eliminate all federal funding for public media in America for the first time in history. That has resulted in a direct loss of millions of dollars to WNYC, our home station. And so if you care about what we do, if you want to keep us around, the best way to support what we do is by becoming a member of the lab. We'd love it if you check it out. Membership starts at just $7 a month. Not that much money. If anything we have made has meant $7 in a month to you, that would really mean the world to us.
If you subscribe, you get all kinds of perks, ad-free listen content, and as of right now, a brand new gigantic tote bag with a gorgeous menagerie of sea creatures on it, designed by our multi-talented assistant producer, Anissa Vita.
It's such a capacious
just tote bag. It's like you're carrying a void around with you
It
wherever you
is.
go.
It is. It is. It's truly. It's a big one. So anyway, do us a favor. Check it out. If you never have, consider it. Take a peek. Just go to radiolab.org/join. All right. Now on to thanking all the glorious people that helped us make today's episode happen.
Yeah, so this show was written by me, Lulu Miller, and Matt Hilty. It was edited by Pat Walters and executive produced by Sarah Sandbach.
That reading from Samantha Harvey's novel Orbital was amazing. Helga Davis. Check out her podcast on our sister station, WQXR, which is simply called Helga.
The show is sound designed by Jeremy Bloom and Matt Hilty with live scoring by Mantra Percussion.
Production assistance by Jessica Young, Maria Paz Gutierrez, and Rebecca Rand.
Fact check by Diane Kelly and Natalie Middleton. Stage direction by Kristen Marding. Scenic design by Norman D. Sherwood. Lighting design by Mary Ellen Stebbins.
With tons of help from the whole Little Island production team, which included Zach Winnicor, Ed Wasserman, Sarah Bellin, and Jonathan Chang.
We love those people. And one last thank you to our voice actors, Davide Borella, Jim Peary, Armando Risco, and Brian Wiles, with casting by Dan Fink.
And that's it. We will be back soon. Catch you then.
Hi, I'm Sam from Montclair, New Jersey, and here are the staff credits. Radiolab was created by Jad Abumrad and is edited by Soren Willer. Lulu Miller and Latif Nasser are our co-hosts. Dylan Keith is our director of sound design. Our staff includes Simon Adler, Jeremy Bloom, W. Harry Fortuna, David Gable, Maria Paz Gutierrez, Sindhu Gnanasambandam, Matt Hilty, Amy McEwen, Alex Mason, Sarah Kari, Sarah Sandbach, Anissa Vitsa, Ariane Walters, Molly Webster, Jessica Young, with help from Rebecca Rand. Our fact checkers are Diane Kelly, Emily Krieger, Anna Pujol Mathini, and Natalie Middleton.
Hey, Radiolab. Michael, Tacoma, Washington. Leadership support for Radiolab science programming is provided by the Simons Foundation and the John Templeton Foundation. Foundational support for Radiolab was provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation.
NYC Now delivers the most up-to-date local news from WNYC and Gothamist every morning, midday, and evening. With 3 updates a day, listeners get breaking news, top headlines, and in-depth coverage from across New York City. By sponsoring programming like NYC Now, you'll reach our community of dedicated listeners with premium messaging and an uncluttered audio experience. Visit sponsorship.wnyc.org to get in touch and find out more.
Hey, I'm Lulu Miller. So Radiolab, you know, we're a science show. Tell sciencey stories, or stories that don't seem sciencey at first, but that have a scientific question at their heart. But there's another element at the core of Radiolab, which is music. The creator of this whole operation and original host, Jad Abumrad, was a musician before he was a journalist. And he took music and brought it into the DNA of the show. And that's still how we do it today. So this week, we're going to listen back to 2 pieces that Jad made about musicians he loves and uses on the show. These are both stories he made years ago, and what I really love about them is that they start deep in the music, purely about the music, but then each one unfurls into something more philosophical about our relationships with technology, our relationships to ourselves. So here they are in an episode we are calling Music Hat. Hope you enjoy.
Wait, you're
You're listening to Radio Lab.
Radio
From
WNYC.
Okay, so I'm gonna put on my music hat for a couple minutes. Okay. And then in 2 weeks we can put our other hats back on.
Science, humanism,
Philosophy, whatever. Look, we are many people.
We are many people.
I am a musician as well as a storyteller. You are a Broadway show tune singer, as well as a radio raconteur.
I would like to have been a Broadway show. No one has ever invited me to do that.
Well, I'm going to invite you at least to listen to my version of that in a few minutes. I'm going to tell you about a band that I just discovered. This may be the coolest thing I've heard in years. Actually, you know this band. I mean, maybe you don't know that you know them, but we've used them in a few shows. Remember the piece we did in show about the perfect snowflake?
Yeah.
We use them there. Oh. Remember the story about the artist who weaponized his own blood?
Yeah, Barton Bennett.
We use them there too.
So in a subtle way, I have already been exposed to them.
That's what I'm saying. Although I am quite certain you will hate their music. I could be wrong about that.
Well, I will be as generous as I know possibly how to be.
The band is called Dawn of MIDI.
Dawn of what?
Of MIDI.
MIDI?
Mm-hmm. Do you know what MIDI is?
No.
It's sort of like a computer language for music. Like in my studio at home, I have a bunch of synthesizers and various things. They all talk to each other using MIDI.
Oh, the dawn of MIDI.
Dawn MIDI.
It's one of those half and halves. Like dawn suggests something Cousin English language sort of movie-like. MIDI, technological, card, cold.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad place to start. Okay, so the band is three guys. Nakash Izrani, who plays the bass. Amino Beliani plays the piano. Qasim Nakvi plays the drums. They met in college at Cal Arts. Initially, though, their partnership was not about music, it was about tennis. Began on the tennis courts.
On the tennis court?
Yeah, it was funny actually because we would play like late at night.
That's Akash, the bass player.
Qasim had like stolen the key and kept it or something. And one night we were there at like 3 a.m. and I think we were really drunk and security showed up and he saw us.
They were pounding the ball back and forth, yelling.
And when he saw the intensity with which we were involved in this match, he was like, you know, you guys should continue, like carry on. And he left.
And that intensity sort of translated into the music that they started to play. Maybe not the competitive part, but they would take it really seriously. Like what they would do is they'd get together.
We'd go into these classrooms that had no windows and turn on all the lights.
And they would play these long, crazy sets
in pitch black darkness.
It was completely, totally improvised. Like before they started, they would have no idea what key they were going to play in.
No.
No idea what tempo.
No.
Or how long they were going to go.
No.
Would you at least figure out who was going to play first?
No.
You mean to just start cold?
Cold. But it would end up sort of like that 3 a.m. tennis match. Really intense, rolling, rollicking improvisations. Kind of atonal.
Atonal, oh boy.
I mean, I know. I just tried not to use that word. But it's really, I like it. It's really, really, like I said, we use it in the Snowflake story. But that's not, that style of music is not actually what I'm going to present to you now.
Okay.
It's what they do next that I find totally fascinating. To set that out. As they're out on tour, doing this free improvisational thing, they were also listening to different kinds of music. Like they were listening to electronic music as well. Stuff like Aphex Twin. Also, one of them gets really deep into trance music. Not techno trance, but
a lot of music from Africa. It's West African music as well as music from Morocco.
And these are musical traditions that have a totally different approach to rhythm, which we can talk about in a second. But they're listening to all this stuff. And it begins to somehow seep in. They begin to put a little bit of it into their sets. And to make a long story short, over the course of 2 years,
it was a very incremental and slow process.
They pieced together this style of music that is 180 degrees from what they were just doing, and unlike anything I've ever heard. And the only way I can describe it is it's sort of like ancient folk music filtered through highly obsessive computers that actually aren't computers but people.
What does that mean?
Here, I'm going to play you some, okay? No, not that. Let's put this on. Let's just wait. Let's just mute this. Great. Here it is. Keep an open mind.
Okay.
So this is how it starts with just a bass line.
Is it going to develop, or are we going to?
Yeah, no, it is. It is. But just slowly. Just wait. Hear that?
Right.
This pianist, he's playing it with his left hand on the string, so he's kind of muting it to create a harmonic.
I know a pot of whales who would go crazy.
Just look, okay, you hear the drums are coming, you hear that?
Yes.
Now, I don't know about you. Actually, maybe I do know about you. But for me, right about now, I'm getting into a deep trance.
All right, let's just don't say anything for a minute and let's see what happens.
Okay. just keeps doing that for 45 minutes. I mean, it's broken into tracks, but it's really just one long thing.
I think that in seismic laboratories all over the world, where geologists gather, people have to listen to impending earthquakes. This is enormous.
In the Gurlwich household too, I imagine.
Because it's small shifts.
Tiny shifts. Come on, you don't find that groovy at all?
Yeah, no, I do. Actually, I do.
So these guys basically went from like free improv, no rules, to becoming like human machines.
It's sort of like wishing to be an element in a very finely made Swiss watch.
Except now move the watch. I think that something is going on in the world right now. That's Akash again. The last 10 to 15 years, you see it in a lot of fields right now. People doing things, quote unquote, in an analog way that 10 years ago would have been assumed were basically like impossible without the age of technology. You see it from big wave surfers who found out they could ride huge waves if they have jet skis to pull them into these waves. To now saying, hey, wait a minute, we can catch this with our arms again. But the jet ski needed to be there to show them that this was even possible. And you see it with this French beatboxer video online. He's doing something that just sounds impossible. It's unbelievable. And it's like something that the kind of stuff that Aphex was programming for his music, but this guy's doing it with his mouth. And it's like the computers showed us a world of possibility, and now we're sort of almost realizing that world was inherent to us, not the machine. Huh. So you're talking about like a reclaiming. Yeah, absolutely. And it was like almost like we didn't know how far the biotech of our minds could go until the machine sort of showed us that, hey, wait a minute, like this is coming from you guys.
You know what it is if you just let it do what it's doing. And have no the usual expectations of resolution or
like that usual arc.
It's not going to tell you a story. It's just going to keep you company. That's what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it's trying to do is to get you into a different state of mind, like a different state of time. That experience of time that is non-narrative, where you're sort of existing in time, not in a sort of regular story way where everything leads to the next thing, beginning, middle, and end. Something else. What Amino and I often talk about is the idea of quantum states of time. And I think what he means, what I take it to mean, is something very ancient. Like, you know, I mentioned that they were listening to West African and Moroccan trance music. What you have in a lot of that music are these vertical stacks of rhythms, like almost multiple time flows existing simultaneously in the same moment. And if you listen into this music that we're hearing right now, you try and pick out, okay, what's the bass doing? What's the drums doing? What's the piano doing? You will hear that they're actually almost not fitting together, like they're playing different beats, pulling at each other in some sense. If I listen in and try and pick out all the lines, I get lost in the intricacies of their rhythms. If I listen out, I can just nod my head to it for 45 minutes. But if I listen in, I can
走。
That's just interesting to me.
等一下，先不要冲动，先礼后兵。哎呦，这不是Josephine吗？啊，混得还不错嘛。啊，
哪里，勉强糊口饭吃而已了，哪像董兄老大，可以吃成这副德性啊！
哎，你们大部分的地盘都已经归我了啊！我有时啊，还真佩服你的毅力，怎么有办法硬撑到这个时候？
这还不是托董兄老大的福 那放我们一条生路嘛，简直是我们的在世父母啊！
那就更应该乖乖的啊，对不对？啊，待在家里，不要再出来了，对不对？啊，
我是也是在家里啊，但董孙老大的地盘是不是占太多了啊？
啊，言下之意是，这句话我听起来怎么好像有一点逾矩啊？啊？
言下之意就是，董孙老大的地盘那么多，是不是该分出来一点呢？是吧？地盘那么多，然后是这部的是分出来一点像样吗？董孙老大。
啊，奉劝你一句啊，谈路可是蛇吞象啊！
哼，谁是蛇，谁是象还不知道呢。
学问没大没小啊！
没你大哇，董轩老大你哦。
吃饭的啊！怎样？你们肉够多吗？这一碗就够大家吃了。真的够吗？够了，够了。电视打开啊！
外头其实都占还蛮深的。
多吃一点的，瞅着多吃一点吧。
董轩老大自己来吃点吧。
来点汤啊！看这一台 OK 吗？
为什么要练习这个东西？不，等，所以我们有没有要猜我？怎么可能？我还没有练习好。原来这个可以再练习，那不重要了。说我猜的。
那最近呢，大家不晓得听过那个元宇宙哦，好像对元宇宙很热门，那什么那个就有点像是虚拟世界，就像是那个戴着 VR 头盔，然后玩游戏的时候可以让你身临其境，听起来很好玩啊，很好玩啊。不过我平常没有在玩什么游戏，所以有什么推荐的？这个问题，我来推荐几款经典游戏像是男主角为了生存下去，开枪射击僵尸的游戏，非常经典的类型啊。好，那就玩这个吧。那我帮你模拟一下游戏情况。首先选择难度，游戏有分难度，有困难、神人、地狱模式，没有简单的吗？我是新手。那这个怎么样？初学者单细胞模式，单细胞，初学者就好，初学者就瞧不起人了啊。好的，那游戏要怎么玩呢？首先手枪有6颗子弹，6颗子弹。如果要带子弹的话，就要这个样子。换子弹有没有帅气一点？我要帅气一点。那这个，更难看，还是要这个。那这个时候使用，第一手就好，第一手就好，这样。那射要注意哦，射击枪是要瞄准它的弱点，不是瞄准它的头部，不是，是嘎吱窝。为什么？游戏的设定呢？奇怪的设定。总之啊，游戏的规则就是这样。假设你是玩家，进入游戏，不知道什么时候会出现僵尸啊？出现了！太难了吧？不是初学者模式吗？为什么第一只僵尸就这么难打？你要打它的弱点啊！哦，对了，腋下。对呀。啊，忘记，一直瞄准头部干嘛？再次。成功了 ，OK over。为什么输了？不对啊，你不能射击无辜的路人啊！刚刚是僵尸吗？是工程师啊！为什么僵尸跟工程师的动作一模一样？那工程师不就这样子吗？ 出现僵尸就好，出现僵尸就好，再出事。这是弱点了吗？这无解了吗？会遮住弱点的僵尸，就算你真是新手啊，你没有观察到吗？当僵尸要攻击你的那一刻，有没有弱点就出现了，对不对？来不及，再一次。带机会，说好举手呢？为什么只有脚踹啊？这样怎么打？没有啊，你全身装备都太弱了，要更新一下装备，要提升攻击力。对啊，那我要至少是一把新的装备。一开始那个工程师啊，这个路人这么重要，他叫做大卫，赶快回去找他吧。大卫。一开始的地点应该是这里没错吧？大卫是你吗？应该是僵尸啊。Game over， 我是大卫。为什么刚刚叫大卫？好理由。这个游戏是外国人发明的，要讲英文啊，麻烦死了。好，讲英文就讲英文。大卫 ，David，Are you David？ 你终于来了。他讲中文。我刚刚帮你调成中文模式，但是英文不好。年轻人，我们已经深受僵尸的攻击很久，希望你能够协助我，我愿意协助你，真的吗？好，太好，那这把武器就交给你了。好，倚天剑。剑行不行？行啊，它是以前的武器啊，很强的。好，试试看啊。唰！哎呦，果然好用。唰！太好了，看来破关不是问题了。哎呦，送死吧！哎，我是大卫。要吓唬我？是这个样子的，有什么重要的情报吗？骗你的，我是僵尸。心机太重，有智慧的僵尸。我觉得你好像不适合玩这款游戏，是我的问题吗？对啊，好，算了，不要玩这个了，不要玩这个，不要什么打打杀杀的，不然换一个轻松一点的，爱养成游戏。大家都有单身的时候，但是两个男人玩这个会不会太悲哀了？什么话？玩这个可以让你变成把妹高手，玩那个才会交不到女朋友。不会啊，好玩吗？想想看，你戴着 VR 头盔哦，然后有个女生哦，你看有个女生栩栩如生的在你面前哦，有没有？你的手要干嘛？完了，就玩这个，好的。那剧情就是你是男主角，在故事当中跟女主角互动，借此增加好感度，最后就可以跟她告白，也就是体验让你追求女孩子的游戏。没错，那我来模拟一下游戏的情况。首先选择难度，这个也有分难度哦。有啊，有简单、普通跟困难。那简单的模式是，简单的就是一般的女生在日常生活中常会出现那种，就像这样。当过这种女生哦。那普通的模式呢？普通就是名模等级，在电视上常出现那种，就像这样。一模一样。不普通就是名模助理。对啊。那困难模式是。僵尸吗？跟僵尸谈恋爱太困难了。不要，简单的，好，一般的女生。好的，那剧情呢？就是你上学快迟到了，急急忙忙出去学校，在转角撞到女孩子，常见的剧情啊。然后你把她撞倒在地上，问她没事吧，你就会认识她了。来不及，非常的简单。好，那假设你是玩家，进入游戏。走，上学快迟到了。为什么是你把我撞倒？上面男孩子这么弱不禁风的，是这个女孩子啊，是装闪锅的，你们喜欢肉肉的？我说我不是在这边的，这边也有一点。 我是2年 B 班的导师，老师们，师生恋的剧情呢？还是你想要校长博士的？校长可以走后门的玩法，走后门入学，走学校后门，还有我的校长，这个女学生就好，女学生口味没那么重了。那认识他之后呢，接下来就要增加好感度。那要怎么样增加好感度？在剧情当中会有一些事件触发，你要回答出正确答案，就可以增加好感度。不用的很方式，没错，就像这样。怎么办？早上太赶了，忘记拿午餐，肚子好饿哦。事件触发了，总共有3个选项。选项 A， 活该，我的便当才分给你吃呢。绝对不是合成太无情。选项 B， 太胖，少吃1餐当做减肥吗？这个也绝对不行，这个是对女生来说是大忌。选项 C， 你吃屎吧你！3个都不行，我告诉你，3个都会生气。4种选择太有戏了。1随便吃屎吧你！好感度，这个女生是 M 型。那既然到了 Max 之后，最后我们就要进行告白了，真的要不要告白？那场景呢就在星空底下，看着夜空一闪烁，非常的浪漫，就像这样子。这片星空好美啊！其实我以为你也是放弃了。其实我是僵尸。
其实啊，这个倪尚离开这件事情，我哭了整整3天3夜。3天3夜，太多了嘛，就是要有一点感伤。是吗？对，感伤的3天3夜。不，比如说要有点悲伤的3天3夜。不是，没听过，再放一首歌。来一个，感伤的3天3夜。悲伤的3天3夜。不要。哎，你刚刚说你为什么要哭？我说倪尚要离开这件事，我哭了3天3夜。等一下，怎么可能啊？的确不可能哭3天3夜。我在表达是我很难过。我没听错吧？什么意思？怎么样？你觉得我会哭很怪吗？所以你搭档什么样子一个底线？倪尚要走。离开？对啊，多久以前就讲好的是吗？没有跟我讲啊？怎么可能啊？我们前阵子才办完倪尚的毕业专场。那你要离开，我知道很简单啊。我以为这专场名称是乱取的，怎么可能？那大家讨论好，怎么会这样子？所以谁叫你要离开？我知道很简单。现在才理解，太难理解了。你跟你这谁取
现很妙。我现在才理解。而且等一下，这个剧名是你开会的时候举手提出来的。我那时候只是举手唱歌而已。过分。不是啊，真的要离开了。医生，来过了会不会太晚了一点？你真的很贱哎！不一定要这样，什么都没说一声就走了。不，他没有死掉哦，而且他有讲，好不好？跟你聊天的感觉仿佛前5分钟才发生一样。啊，对他今天有来，你刚刚有跟他讲到话。如果你还在的话，我真的揍你一拳。他还活着，你绝对揍得到。医生，现在去吧，等一下，不用现在。医生，找他们，一定要现在处理这件事情。医生，医生。
This is Radio Lab.
是你？不然你们长得太像。怎么可能啊？他比医生大帅哥，我怎么可能？在笑人。这个贴心又温暖又帅气的家伙出来！哇，我这辈子都没有这样讲过我。这个很会跳舞又帮阿弟弹过我的家伙出来！哇，你不要帮他自我介绍。不是，他如果这么好，我们就不要揍他了。我怎么可能会想揍他？那我超想揍他的跳舞老师的。什么意思？为什么要这样？跳舞老师让他跳舞变很强，他是个小特人去跳舞的。这什么奇怪的道理啊？我完全没想到啊！不是这个原因，你跳舞老师，人家跳舞老师。你刚刚有看过我跳舞？我绝对不会是什么跳舞老师，这是要教什么东西？也是啊。不过你身为团长，你上都要走，你只帮他办一个专场，这样不太 OK 吧？
It's in a little town in northern Michigan called Mayo. 7 a.m. Just drove through the Delaware Water Gap. That's me on my way out there from New York. The sun is rising and it's about an 800-mile drive. And it's just gorgeous out here.
Oh, listen to you.
Lush and
All into the
like
outdoors.
nauseous.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm just one of those people. When I get out into nature, I feel my place in the world. Anyways, crossing the Mayo
So you get there.
Yep.
What was the reason you were going again?
to see a bird. A very, not just rare, not just the kind of bird birders get obsessed about, but this is a bird, this is what they call a life bird.
A life bird?
Birders wait their life to see it.
Really?
Yeah. Only found right here.
What's the bird called?
The Kirtland warbler.
Have you seen a Kirtland before?
No, I've never seen one. This is my first trip up here.
This right here. Where are you?
We're just outside of town on the edge of the forest, about to go in, and I'm standing with about 15 people who've come from everywhere.
Where are you folks coming from?
To see this bird.
Toledo?
I'm from South Carolina.
Yeah.
We're from Oregon.
South Dakota.
Dayton, Ohio area.
Wyoming.
We'll walk out to a spot, try to stay single file.
Park ranger leads us down the path into a little clearing, and pretty immediately,
In the background there.
way back there,
Mm-hmm.
a guy from Ohio spots a Kirtland. Oh, there he is, yeah. A tiny yellow bird back there,
Right there.
up high in a jack pine. Yeah, oh great, it's singing like crazy. The lady from Dayton starts clapping.
You describe what you're seeing?
I see a lovely bird with a gray back.
This is a guy from Oregon, Jim Coleman,
Blue gray back.
and his wife Rita.
Smaller than a robin.
Beautiful yellow throat and breast.
Brilliant yellow. And so in the sunlight, he's just an absolutely radiant bird.
This makes the trip to Oregon.
Oh, you bet. It just makes me like, come here. That makes me grateful that my wife is here. I know this is something she's wanted to see all for a long time.
Jim actually starts to tear up.
This is a very special bird.
Cool in here. And that's what this story is really about. How special is this bird? Well, how much is a species worth? Well, here's the backstory. In the early 70s, the warbler almost went extinct.
Want to go in?
Okay. The reason why it was thought
That's just the sound of
was because of a little creature called the cowbird.
It's not only
it's a parasite, you know, and some, and it's
And who is this guy?
This is Chris,
wildlife biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
and we're standing in this cage full of cowbirds.
What looks like we've got 6 males and 1 female. Let me grab a couple.
He just reached out and grabbed 2 of them. You're good at that.
And the males, yeah, go ahead.
What do they look like?
It's like, imagine a tiny little gnarly crow. They've got really sharp little beaks, but with this curled beak.
It has a very drab body, very dull.
So here's what the cowbird does to the warbler. While the warbler is out of its nest,
Like getting a worm or something?
yeah, the cowbird lays one of its own eggs in the nest. To make room for it so the warbler doesn't know anything is up, it pushes out one of the warbler's eggs.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the timing is such that the cowbird egg will hatch first and will double its size in 24 hours. So by the time that the host birds hatch, that cowbird may be up to 4 times the size. And when they start begging for food with parents, the loudest, the most aggressive chick is going to get fed. The cowbird chick.
So the warbler mom ends up shoveling food into this cowbird chick?
Yep. And oftentimes it gets so much food that another warbler chick will die.
Really?
Yeah. So when the cowbirds first showed up in this area,
In the late 1800s, early 1900s,
the warbler population just started plummeting.
this huge drop.
By 1971,
There are only 200 males.
on Earth.
Well,
So, what do?
are you asking? I guess you gotta kill the cowbirds.
Exactly.
This is one of 54 traps. It's a new one that we just built this year.
Which is why we're out in this cage. It's actually a cowbird trap. Oh, run, cowbird, run!
She bite me. They just like anyone, if you have someone larger grabbing you, they don't appreciate it too much. So
Anyone know how they kill them?
I kind of do, yeah.
thoracic compression is the term we use. We basically squeeze the bird, suffocating and preventing it from breathing. Yep. Yeah.
You have to do that like all the time?
Yep.
Did you see this?
No. But 1972, Fish and Wildlife Service sets up a bunch of traps. A few years and about 12,000 dead cowbirds later,
It works.
kind of. The population stopped dying off, but then it didn't start bouncing back.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Why aren't we seeing bigger numbers now that we're catching cowbirds?
That's Rita Halverson. She worked with the Forest Service back in the 80s.
And we thought, well, if we finally concluded it must be just there is not enough habitat.
Like they don't have enough trees? Is it,
Well, no, there are plenty of trees, but the thing about warblers is they like a specific kind of tree. They like them very young. That was weird. I could feel it as I was saying it. They like them young.
no, but they like young trees, is what you're saying.
Yep.
And there aren't young trees in this place?
No, it's really weird. When they started looking around this forest, they noticed all the trees were really, really old.
Why? Why wouldn't there be young trees?
Well, us. Hey, Smokey Bear! See, when humans began to settle in this area of Michigan in about the 1880s, they brought with them a certain human disdain for fire.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
But fire is exactly what's needed up there to make new trees.
Yeah, this ecosystem is a fire ecosystem.
Says Chris.
It burns.
Because when these trees burn, they release their seeds and make room for new trees to grow.
It is a fire ecosystem. It is made to burn.
So, I ask you again, what do?
Do you start fires? Would that be the solution?
That would be the solution. So the forestry started doing
What we call a prescribed burn.
basically, says Rita, they burned down a little patch of forest
A few acres.
to regenerate it. And one windy spring day in 1980, in a place called Mac Lake, the Forestry Service started a fire that they probably shouldn't have.
Okay, my name is Dick Lord, and at the time of the Mac Lake fire, I was part of the ignition crew for the prescribed burn.
What is an ignition crew?
They light the fire.
So at 10 in the morning, Dick and his crew go out into the woods, start setting up perimeters, and begin lighting a few stands of shrubs.
I was driving home.
That's Bob Burner, best name ever for a firefighter.
I could see the Forest Service starting to do a burn. And I thought, this is not a good time. It was windy. They didn't have the manpower. I said, we'll probably get called on here shortly.
basically, we did not realize that the weather was going to change as rapidly as it did.
The wind came up suddenly, something nobody could predict, and it took the fire across the road into a standard mature jet plane and took off.
Our flames were probably 100 to 150 feet in the air.
Sound is like a roaring train.
The forest guys jumped into their bulldozers, trying to plow trenches alongside.
To pinch it off.
And you can feel the heat
It was way out of our control.
hitting the tops of the trees, rolling.
I knew at the rate it was traveling that it was going to be a major catastrophe.
Within 6 hours, it had burned over 20,000 acres. It's one of the fastest moving fires ever documented.
Yeah, I went through here. Fire you can see was all black.
These are two guys
Hi, Bob.
going houses in the area that got burned.
Remember the guy down there in the corner? Grabbed it off her. Sorry.
Their houses were okay, but 41 houses were destroyed.
All the way up to the lake. Yeah,
Oh, there's nothing green.
like something out of a moonscape.
As far as you can see, everything gone.
And the worst part about it for all of us
It's Rita Halbison again.
was that it killed one of the Forest Service employees, a very young wildlife technician who was very well loved by his co-workers.
A guy named Jim Swiderski.
You know, Jim was a good friend, as well as an employee.
Dick Lord again, Jim Fox. He told me that Jim had been a postman for a few years, but just loved birds so much that he took a huge pay cut to come and help protect the warbler.
Basically, what happened was the fire overran him.
Oh, the press was having a heyday, just tearing into the Forest Service when it happened.
The townspeople were very angry at the Forest Service.
How could you do this?
Rita says they were told not to wear Forest Service uniforms in town.
Gosh, it was so terrible.
And the forest itself,
There's nothing there.
was completely silent. But a year later, a little bit of green started to poke up. Then the next year, a little bit more. And
8 to 10 years after that Macklight burn, it just seemed like it had really turned around. It stopped for listen, not even 5 or 6 birds, a tremendous number of warblers. That was the answer to the mystery.
The fire.
You know, if you look at a population graph,
That's Chris Mensing again.
after that Mac Lake burn, population went like that.
He points his hand straight up.
So it's pretty dramatic.
And today, the numbers are up to almost 4,000 birds. And growing.
Singing like crazy.
Now that the birds are back, but a man is gone, you walk around this town, a question lingers in the air.
Is the life of a fireman worth the life of a bird?
That question right after the break.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.
Lulu Radiolab. Just before the break, a well-intentioned fire had turned deadly, and it left a town wondering,
Is the life of a fireman worth the life of a bird?
oh,
Take a look. Take a look.
Is it? No. In my opinion, it isn't.
this is Ed Fawcett.
I wouldn't trade your life for a bird.
I'm sitting with him and his wife, Mary Jane, in a diner. And no matter where you go in this town, people don't tend to be fans of the warbler.
It's just a small bird.
And I've been up here since '68. I've never seen one.
Did you ever see one?
No.
Never have I seen one.
I've never seen one.
And back to Ed.
I just gotta say to you, what would you think about it if your father or brother were killed in a useless fire for a bird? It'd be pretty hard to accept, wouldn't it?
But if you zoom out, one human life versus the end of a species.
You know how many warblers there are in the United States? I think there's something like 37 species of warblers.
The real number's actually closer to 60.
That's kind of ridiculous.
And that's not all.
They ask me, when are you done? And we really say, never.
Chris explained to me that they have to keep killing the cowbirds, and they have to keep doing burns, smaller burns, but every single year.
If we let things be, the bird would be extinct. That's the hard thing about this job, is knowing that we're never done.
How many people are working? How much?
We're probably looking at hundreds of people. Dollars, we could be looking at, well over $1 million a year.
And all this began to really sink in on one of my last mornings out there. Alright, it is 5 in the morning. It was the annual Kirtland Warbler Census, where birders from all over the world show up to help count how many warblers there are out there.
Is it like, there's a warbler, stuff, there's a warbler?
Yeah, that's actually exactly how it works. I was paired up with this guy, Dave Mendes.
We're gonna kind of walk through the middle of these transects. We're gonna come up.
He's kind of a dude. He's an older guy, got a beard.
I work for an electrical contractor.
Told me he's got a man room.
My man room, most guys got sports, but I've got Kirtland's Warbler pictures up on the wall.
Nice.
So I went into it thinking, like, this will be really cool. We'll march along. We'll count them. I looked at the map. It was a mile, maybe, of a walk. We'll be done in 20 minutes. Well, okay, maybe not. We're walking through the forest an hour tops.
And
They did. Oh, there you go. We set off. Dense, brambly forest. Still dark.
that was a hermit thrush.
And let me just play you a quick little time lapse.
20 to 7 right now. The sun's just coming up and it's getting a little muggy out here.
Oh, yeah?
You can't count them though, he's not intersection. So, that way. Yeah, there he is again. But I'm not going to mark him in because I don't know exactly where he's at. There he goes. No, right there.
Did you count him?
No. We want to be a lot more accurate than just to say, we know there's one up there. We want to triangulate them. 9:56 and all is well in the Warbler.
Hey, a couple of ants are biting me. Yeah. They do a little bit. Yeah. Get out of there.
10:45 a.m. I know that there's a bird out there. I can still get that bird way back here.
So I ended up staying out there for 7.5 hours. just mark one.
Mark one.
And I don't mean to sound like I'm making fun of Dave. I mean, he's doing his job well. But at some point in between the fire ants and taking 4 hours to confirm this one bird, I just started thinking about all the effort it takes. I just suddenly thought, it's this fussy, fragile little bird and it hasn't evolved. Who cares? I mean, this is not worth it. And so I started asking people who protect the bird, why do it with so much money and it's all for a bird? And I could see it maybe if it was for some, but it's just one warbler of 18 million different kinds of warblers. Like, why do it?
Well, we do it because we should. We're stewards of the land.
That's Chris Mensing again, cowbird killer.
It's for future generations.
And well, here's the fire starter, Dick Lord.
The Kirtland's Warbler was listed under the Endangered Species Act, and we had a charge under the law to do what we could to recover its existence. And that's the only thing that I can say that, we had to do what the law required us to do.
So we should do it when the law tells us we have to do it. I'm convincing. And that question,
The life of Harriman worth the life of a bird.
and that guy Ed at the diner, it just stuck in my mind. I realized I couldn't leave this town until I talked to the people who lost the most.
Full name, Robert Swiderski, age 54.
Kathleen Swiderski.
Florence Swiderski. I'm the mother of James Swiderski.
Guy died?
Yeah.
Iced tea or water?
We're all sitting around the kitchen table.
There's a lot of hot dogs and beer over there.
Jim's brother-in-law was there too.
Soft cowboy.
And I asked them to tell me about Jim.
Quite a guy. Soft spoken. Smart. Quite a character.
They told me at first they were furious.
They should never ever send him in there.
Angry at the Forest Service, angry about this bird.
Very.
Now, 3 decades later,
I say you keep that old bird going. Exactly.
and Jim's younger brother, Robert, said that the thing he wanted the most is for the Kirtland's warbler to become the
State bird. That would be the ultimate. That would be the biggest accomplishment ever, would be that being a state bird.
I guess in some ways I'm surprised. I didn't mean to come here with expectations, but in some ways I thought if it was my family that I would pick that bird, but I would take that bird.
No, it's not the bird. I mean, that bird didn't do anything to him. It was, you know, we can keep it going. I mean, that's what he set out to do. Let's keep it going.
They think about Jim's death,
Any of the military.
like the death of a soldier.
Where would you be sitting right now if we would have lost all those soldiers in World War I, World War II?
That he died protecting us.
You know, it's only one species. Well, then it's going to be another species, and another species, and another species. Next thing you know, you walk out in the morning, and it'll be quiet. Thank God for Teddy Roosevelt and the boys that made our national parks. Imagine what if we didn't have those. It costs money, it's painful, blah, blah, blah. You gotta have the guts to do that. And Jim was really that kind of guy.
Well, that is convincing.
Yeah. But
Do you agree, boys?
and I asked the mom.
What can I say? The birds are coming back, but the life was gone. So why bring it up again? It's done. You can't bring it back, so you have to live with it, but there's always a hole in your heart. Something that none of us will ever forget forever. But don't ask me any more questions, please.
And then, if ever there was a sign to just turn off the darn mic,
Oh,
oh, power goes out.
oh.
We go home, get the generator.
I think we're down to there.
Okay, Lulu from 2025 here again. Since I reported this story in 2010, a couple things have changed for that little bird. The biggest thing is that in 2019, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service officially removed the Kirtland's warbler from the endangered species list. That meant the bird had surpassed recovery goals. Since then, the population has begun to decline again, but the Michigan Department of Natural Resources say they feel confident they have the tools and resources to stabilize the population. And one more thing. A few years back, I called up Robert Spiderski just to check in and ask how everyone was doing, and he said that his mom, Florence, I remember this, he said, she ain't cooking, but she's still kicking. At that point, she was 92. Since then, she has passed away, and a note on her obituary online suggested that in her memory, in lieu of flowers, we might plant a tree.
Hi, I'm Victor from Springfield, Missouri, and here are the staff credits. Radio Lab was created by Jed Abumrad and edited by Sean Wheeler. Lulu Miller and Dr. Nasser are our co-hosts. Dewey Keith is our director of sound design. Our staff includes Simon Adler, Jeremy Bloom, Dr. Pressler, W. Harry Fortuna, David Gable, Maria Paz Gutierrez, Sanu Nanasamandan, Matt Kilby, Annie McEwen, Alex Neeson, Sarah Kari, Sarah Sandbeck, Anissa Pizza, Ariana, Cal Altos, Molly Webster, and Jessica Young, with help from the Parker Band. Our fact checkers are Diane Kelly, Emily Krieger, Anna Pujol-Medini,
and Natalie Middleton.
Hi, I'm Jerry, and I'm calling from Kapsawar, Kenya. Support for Radiolab science programming is provided by the Simons Foundation and the John Templeton Foundation. Foundational support for Radiolab was provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation.
好，持续带来关心发生在台北市中山区一间医美诊所的命案。一名50岁的男子呢，到这个诊所呢去进行生殖器的整形手术，不过呢就在术后身亡了。在稍早时候呢，检察官已经抵达了怀爱馆这边要来进行相验，而他的这个死者的家属呢，在下午1点多左右呢，也是已经抵达了，刚刚呢也已经进去一起相验了。回顾这起案件呢，这一名死者他的时候呢，来到这间医美诊所咨询完之后呢，他就马上决定要动手术了。那手术大约是中午11点的时候开始，在下午2点结束。不过呢，就在术后的5个小时后呢，才被诊所的人员发现说他的状况不太对劲。而在救护人员到场时，他是已经明显身亡了。那根据我们了解哦，其实这间医美诊所它里面的配置图也曝光了，有2间的手术室、1间恢复室，还有1间的咨询室。不过呢，是被人发现说呢，其实他这个手术室里头呢，还放了一个冰箱，而且甚至呢，菜刀疑似呢就放在手术台上，相当的简陋哦。那这一名这个执刀的丁姓医师呢，其实他过往呢就有类似的这个医疗纠纷，这一次呢一样是涉嫌这个业务过失致死的部分，被警方移送侦办。那现在呢，检警这边呢要来相验厘清死因。那法医高大成呢，他也表示说，他认为呢死因呢主要是因为跟这个麻醉有。
I'm Lucy Cook. I'm the author of Bitch on the female of the species and got a background in zoology.
All right. We do love Lucy. Yeah. She's like this globe-trotting tracker of amazing animal stories. She's been to Panama to meet stoned dwarf sloths. She went to Sweden to track drunken moose.
All right.
And then a little while back, while she was working on her latest book,
I was delighted to fly to Seattle and meet this population of orcas.
She got wind of a pretty amazing discovery in killer whales.
Yeah, this felt like a really, really important story and one that I found inspiring.
It was a discovery that directly speaks to something that lots of humans are actually going to have to contend with at some point in their lives, including Lucy herself and me and you.
Me.
You, Molly.
Okay, so yeah.
So Lucy hopped on a plane.
Flew to Seattle.
And then to get to the patch of the ocean north of where the whales actually live.
You get a seaplane. You get to feel like you're in a 1970s, adventure series. That's how everybody travels in the 1970s, was by seaplane to go and deal with emergencies,
But the actual reason Lucy was there was to get on a boat with a woman named
Yeah.
Deborah Giles.
So my name's Deborah Giles, Dr. Deborah Giles, but I just go by my last name, Giles.
Yeah, I'd written to her offering up my services to join her on her research boat because I'd heard that she went out every day chasing orcas, trying to catch their poo in a net.
That's what I do.
Okay.
Yeah, my main job is poop collection.
And the reason why is because, as she'll tell you, poop is a gold mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently you can learn a lot about whales by looking at their poop.
Everything you can imagine, anything that you can get from a blood sample, you can analyze through the feces.
Hormones, microbes, environmental chemicals.
Yes.
So what they do is they go out in the boat until they spot this group of killer whales, and then
You do what's called a distant poop follow.
Oh.
I think that is a scientific term. You form a little polite distance back.
yeah, everyone needs some privacy.
Exactly. Don't want to overcrowd them.
And at some point, one of Giles's assistants,
A non-human research assistant, Eva the dog, the former street dog from Sacramento,
will pick up the scent,
She'll go to the front of the boat,
put her snout in the air,
stand up on the bow.
and then leads them to it.
Does the whale poop float at the surface?
Yes.
We're not talking a solid turd by any means. It's more of a
Thick pancake batter.
And then they just lean over the side of the boat with this plastic lab vial on the end of a stick
And gently break the surface of the water.
and scoop up the poop.
okay.
So the reason Lucy went to visit Giles and these whales is because the scientists who study them had noticed something odd.
There comes a time when we don't see the females in this population giving birth.
When they got to be around like 40 or so, the female whales just stopped having babies, even though they lived to be 70, 80, even like 100 years old. So
These females were living this long stretch of their life without having any new calves.
at first the scientists thought they were having miscarriages maybe, or there was some kind of pollutant in the water or something that was causing these older females to stop having babies. But in 2017, Giles and this colleague of hers, Sam Wasser, published a poop analysis that confirmed a very different hypothesis that people had been considering for a couple decades. They wrote, and I quote here, "The females in the population have undergone reproductive senescence."
Oh, senescence.
Yeah, which was like not a word I knew, but yeah, but maybe you know it. I don't know.
Well,
It's like a fancy way of saying
yeah.
that at a certain age, the reproductive system of these whales started to physiologically shut down. And along with a lot of other questions about the whales and autopsies of beach whales, they were able to like confirm that these whales were going through menopause.
Okay.
That's my big reveal.
I guess I maybe would have expected them to go through menopause.
You're not surprised. You're not surprised.
I don't know. I'm like,
Well, you kind of should be surprised because
okay.
actually, up until they figured this out about the whales, scientists widely believe that menopause was a uniquely human thing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was assumed that human females were the only species that went through it.
Out of like 6,000 some species of mammals, they thought we were the only ones.
So we were just freaks.
And freaks because if you think about it scientifically, menopause is actually very weird. Like, it doesn't-
is this sort of you saying like this is weird, or do you think scientists are like, yo, this is weird?
I mean, they would probably say it a little bit more fancy.
So I would just come, no, like, it is super weird, right? It is super weird.
Okay, so this is a scientist. His name is Kevin.
And I have a long last name. Langergraver, Kevin Langergraver. I'm an associate professor in the School of Human Evolution and Social Change at Arizona State University.
And Kevin says from an evolutionary point of view, no animal should have what he calls
The substantial post-reproductive lifespan.
Substantial post-reproductive lifespan.
fun phrase.
Yeah.
I asked him if we could say something more fun, and he said no.
No.
Anyway, the point is, it's the living for a long time after you can no longer reproduce. That's the weird part.
It shouldn't be, because from the perspective of evolution, right? What evolution favors traits that get more genes into the next generation.
And if you're not having babies, you're not sending your genes into the next generation.
Natural selection takes a pretty dim view of a loss of fertility, and once you stop breeding, you die. That's the general story.
And is natural selection really that cut and dry that it's if you're not contributing to the genetic pool, you should be out?
Well, of course, natural selection isn't everything, right? Not every trait you look at in an organism has a functional reason. But, like the vast majority of mammal species, you end up reproducing until you die. Then it's still super weird that a few don't.
Like, think about it this way. If there were a human woman who could keep having babies for her whole life until she dies, she would, genetically at least, outcompete the women who can't. So it sort of seems like there should be some evolutionary genetic reason for the reproductive system to kind of peter out before the human person does.
That is the evolutionary puzzle, right?
Now, one of the most common things people say when they hear about this is that in humans, this is kind of like a fluke of modern life.
So the idea was that perhaps human females were living beyond their reproductive shelf life because we were being propped up by regular meals and modern medicine.
So the idea being that in olden times we used to die around menopause, and so this long post-reproductive life is just because now we live longer than we used to.
Right, but it turns out actually that's not the case.
Which part?
All part is not the case. Not true. None of that's true.
Okay.
In ancient times, people also lived to be about 70.
Really?
Yeah.
I just thought it was like the only people who did were like royals who were highly attended
No,
to.
so there's this interesting thing where like we get these average life expectancy numbers, and the averages take into account the fact that people die before like the age of 5 because they die in childbirth, they die of infant diseases.
Oh, it's like a skewed average.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
So if you account for that, you see that many women were in fact living 20, 25 years, 30 years after they could no longer reproduce. So humans have been going through menopause like for the entire history of humans.
And it's a thing, menopause. It's a roller coaster. You know, it's an emotional and physical roller coaster.
And back to Lucy, she says that going into menopause for her was pretty brutal.
I mean, hot sweats and furious moods.
And it's pretty brutal for a lot of women. But she also says,
once it's, I was going to say it's icy fingers, but it's anything but icy. Once it's hot fingers got a hold of me.
She did have in the back of her mind this question, which was,
why? Why was I still alive?
That's a question.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense way to put it. But the thing about menopause,
you know, I know it gets a lot of press now and everybody's allowed to talk about it. My mother's generation, no one did.
For such a long time, it's been completely ignored by science, by culture, and probably partly because of that, I do think a lot of women end up feeling invisible or useless.
You know, you were just sort of irrelevant after your period stopped, you know, and you were kind of this sort of, you know, kind of grey puddle of purposelessness, you know. So when I heard that killer whales went through menopause,
it felt like a chance to ask, what is this time in her life for? In a kind of different, more scientific way.
Yeah, so these are really big questions, and
So this is a scientist named Darren Croft.
I am professor of animal behavior at the University of Exeter.
He's part of this huge team that's been studying these killer whales for like decades now.
And so there's this incredible, rich amount of data on their behavior and their movements.
And so what the scientists watching these whales day in, day out have seen is that
there's a lot of purpose, and we know that now. These females have rich social lives.
Lives that could make sense in like a cold, hard, evolutionary logic kind of way. So for example, Giles and Darren told us about this one particular female killer whale named
Granny, who's possibly the most famous wild killer whale in the world.
Granny, she was just an astonishing whale who lived to be at least into her late 80s, possibly as old as 105.
And according to Darren and Giles, all the way up to the end,
she had this zest for life.
Yeah, what does that look like?
Socializing, foraging, breaching, tail slapping.
It does sound zesty.
Yeah,
for being old.
living.
And in particular, the scientists noticed she's actually a killer grandma.
Carried with and babysat brand new babies.
Because the way these groups of killer whales usually work is
sons and daughters stay in their mum's household.
So Granny's part of this sort of multi-generational pod.
Yes, our colleagues capture drone imagery of Granny helping to corral a fish towards her great-grand calf.
When Darren and his colleagues did a study of these killer whales, they found that the whales that had menopausal around, like Granny,
whales who aren't having babies of their own anymore.
Right.
Okay.
When those ones were still around, the young had higher chances of survival than the whales who had no grandmas, or even had grandmas who were premenopausal. Does that make sense?
So the grandmas who couldn't have babies anymore were more helpful than the grandmas who were still having babies.
Right. And this actually gave like a lot of support to an idea that people have been thinking about in terms of humans actually for a while.
The grandmother hypothesis.
I feel like I hear a lot about the grandmother hypothesis, but I'm not even sure it works.
Yeah, right. But it's basically what we just learned with the whales.
The hypothesis there is what's important is that post-reproductive females play an important role in the survival of their grand offspring.
There's something that makes a lot of, I'll just say as a person with a 2-year-old child, like, makes a lot of sense to me. Like, you know, like my mother was just like incredibly helpful and useful. I mean, that's data point of 1. It's not scientific, but we feel how this is like makes some amount of sense to be true.
Yes. Yeah.
So this hypothesis is just like your evolutionary purpose is to be a mom, even if you are no longer being a mom.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the cultural takeaway. That's like what you think of if you've ever heard of this before. But when you look at the whales, it goes way beyond that. Like the older killer whale female, she's actually kind of running the show.
I mean, it was clear that Granny was the one in charge, the matriarch of all matriarchs.
They play diplomat or keeper of the peace, especially with the younger male whales.
Females, especially post-reproductive females, are intervening in the lives of their adult sons, making sure that they're not roughhousing enough to get injured.
But also they're like hunter-in-chief,
Leading the pod to find food to feed everybody.
Granny and her family have basically always exclusively eaten salmon.
But those salmon are really hard to find now because they've been hunted by humans.
But Granny, with her 11-pound, super intelligent brain, she can remember things from like 25 years ago.
Yeah, you know, 25 years ago, at this time of year, there was a bunch of salmon that did go up this random little tributary halfway up the coast.
And the scientists could like literally this play out as they were watching the whales on these hunts.
Granny would just start slapping her tail on the water, and like all the whales would go like, whoop, Granny's calling, we're going to go in the direction that she wants us all to go. That was something that we used to get to see quite often.
And even after she spent
45 minutes or even an hour trying to catch a fish, you know, continuing even though she was most assuredly hungry herself.
Giles said she would see her
bite the fish in half or sometimes even in thirds and have family members come over to grab that fish.
So the postmenopausal female whales, they might not be adding more of their genes to the gene pool,
but they're not sitting around filing their nails and watching daytime soap operas.
They're like totally crucial to the survival of the group.
These orca females are the repositories for ecological wisdom. They're keeping their hunting community alive.
Does it make you think about your experience as a woman? I mean, whenever I ask scientists this question, they're like, don't ask this question. But like looking the orca in the eye and thinking about Granny change anything for you?
You know, I probably shouldn't answer this. But I will. I'll give you an honest answer because I felt incredibly moved by them. I really did. I was really pleased that I made the effort and I went there and I spent time with Dr. Giles and, you know, understanding how evolution had granted these females these long lives with such purpose made me think differently about my loss of fertility. And I found the idea that my value now was in my wisdom and my brain and the things that I can teach other people. Really empowering. As opposed to feeling like you're a grey puddle that's, you know, decreasing relevance in the world, and you know, it's the kind of it's the opposite. You know, in every way, I was like, be more orca.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that the older females are having tons of sex.
I mean, that sounds great. Right. I love the idea of like being an orca.
But there is something in me that like just sort of fundamentally chafes at the idea that I have to be useful in some way, like whether that's like being a caretaker or being like hunter in chief. Right. Like, it's like I always have to prove my worth
Well,
if I'm not there to have babies.
I think you'll be kind of happy to hear that, that's not the only idea that science has about menopause. When we come back from break, I'm going to tell you about another animal that's, I don't know, I think you might like this one.
You want in on a secret? All year, it's been Bro Podcast this and Bro Podcast that. Here's what they're not telling you. Women are the fastest growing force in podcasts. I'm Brittany Luce, and on the It's Been a Minute podcast, I create a space for curious and culturally savvy listeners like you. Come and share a laugh with me and hundreds of thousands of other listeners as we dissect the biggest trends of the day. Let's get smarter together. Listen to the It's Been a Minute podcast today.
All right, we're back for the second part of this episode.
Yep. Okay, so let's recap.
Love a recap.
We're talking about menopause and how it's super weird.
Totally weird.
We thought for a long time we're the only ones who did it, and then scientists learned about orcas.
Right.
And scientists started watching them, and they sort of thought, oh, maybe we're solving this evolutionary puzzle
Of like why we have menopause.
of why we have menopause. But maybe
So let me unpack that.
so again, this is this guy Kevin Langergraber.
We're really getting into the weeds here.
One important detail that I didn't mention before about Kevin is that every year for the past 25 years, Kevin has spent time living what he calls
Chimp life.
working on this thing called the Ngogo Chimpanzee Project.
Which is a long-term study of this one community of chimpanzees,
It's in southwestern Uganda.
pretty much smack dab in the middle of Kibale National Park.
So picture like
Huge, huge trees,
and a wide open forest floor
like an open park.
where every single day
Get up in the morning, have your breakfast and your coffee. The sun is just starting to come up. That's when you want to leave and go find the chimps.
and then he spends the rest of his day just watching them.
Basically, you're writing down what they do.
They're grooming, they're hunting, they're eating.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of right from the beginning of his time there, Kevin started to notice something interesting about the older female chimps.
Okay.
Like Garbo, for example.
She's an old-timey silent movie character.
Yeah, exactly.
This female who now is about 72 years old.
No way. 72? That's like my mom's age.
Yeah, Kevin's actually known Garbo from the very beginning, since she was about 50.
Okay.
At which point,
She already had adult kids.
but for the last 25 years, he's never seen her have a baby.
But here's the thing, post-reproductive individuals, they exist, There's always like the occasional old female who doesn't really anymore.
But the thing Kevin wanted to figure out was like, is Garbo an anomaly? Or is this something that's happening to more chimps than just her?
Exactly.
And to get to the bottom of that, he had to collect.
Biological samples.
Okay, back to poop.
No, not poop. Pee.
Yeah.
Urine.
Urine.
No shade to poop samples, obviously.
Urine collection is actually easier than fecal sample collection because they pee a lot more than they poo.
I don't know about easy though, because what Kevin has to do is
You get a stick from the forest. Picture a stick that's about 3 feet long,
and it looks kind of like a Y,
sort of like a weird pitchfork or something.
and he puts a little plastic bag on the end of the Y.
And then when the chimps are up in a tree, they're peeing down on you, and you stick your stick out, away from you so that you don't collect too much pee yourself, on your head and stuff.
And you get the stream of pee to connect with your stick.
And then it fills up that bag. This is highbrow science.
Now these pee samples, they're sort of like the whale poop. They can tell you a lot about what's happening in the bodies of individual chimps, like Garbo, for example.
You're just waiting for Garbo to pee, and then when she does, you pee.
So when Kevin analyzed her samples and the samples of the other older female chimps,
We found, smoking gun sort of level of science that we rarely get.
because looking at the levels of reproductive hormones,
It was really just easy to tell that
yep, female chimps
these other old females.
go through menopause.
Yes.
And I mean like they go through menopause. It's very similar to the human experience. Or at least we think it is. Kevin was very careful to mention that like I can't speak to hot flashes.
No.
Right, like I can't speak to some of the physical symptoms or like the emotional swings.
Right.
But like there's a hormone cessation.
Right. And that cessation, it's pretty similar to the pattern in humans. It's like a ramping down, basically.
Wow.
And after that, they just keep on living their lives for decades sometimes. Just like humans and just like the whales.
And then there were 3.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sort of. Actually, when they did all that orca research, they actually found out that there were a handful of other whales that are really similar to orcas that also go through menopause. So like narwhals.
Narwhals.
Yeah. But chimps are the 3rd major animal group we know of that experience this long life after menopause.
Is Garbo also scratching her head, asking what life is for after menopause?
No, she's not.
But Kevin definitely is.
Let's think about it.
Okay, so I'm gonna like paint you a picture of what Garbo's life is like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before she stopped having babies, she had 3 sons.
Monk, Richmond, and Hutcherson.
By the way, why didn't they name him like Steve or something?
It feels very like old money.
I know, like who came up with that? Okay, so Monk and Richmond actually aren't alive anymore, but let's just like imagine a time when they all were alive. Because like, long story short, a big part of Garbo's day is hanging out with her sons.
She had like, a good relationship with both Hutcherson and Richmond.
What about Monk?
No, Monk, she hated one of them.
No, like they didn't even know they were related until they did the genetic testing, and they were like, "Oh, I guess she had 3 sons, not just 2."
Scandal.
Yeah. Dang Garbo.
Dang Garbo.
Anyway, so all day Garbo, Hutcherson, and Richmond would be together,
Richmond and Hutcherson would groom Garbo a lot.
like kind of running their fingers through her hair and picking out bugs and like scratching her little back.
Love
And
it.
she would totally bliss out.
Like zone out in this really zen-like state. It's like, I'm bald now, but I remember when I used to go to the hairdresser and get my hair cut, and you could feel like the hairdresser is running their hands through your scalp. I would just zone out and
Also, Richmond and Hutcherson would bring food to Garbo.
Share meat with Garbo.
Monkey meat.
Chimps eat monkey meats?
Yeah, it's a chimp delicacy. They love a monkey meat.
Okay.
In the movie version of this, they would bring it to her on like a silver platter and honor her.
I mean, that's what's happening in my head. So does that mean she doesn't have to hunt for herself?
Right. Also,
if someone would be aggressive to Garbo, often, Richmond and Hutcherson would like chase them off, protecting their mother.
And that's it. That's all that Garbo does. So like kind of notice here what you're not hearing.
No real grandmothering behavior.
So Garbo is not making Christmas cookies for her grandchildren.
No, she's not.
She's not doing anything toward the youth.
Really towards anyone.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, she's not super helpful.
Huh. God, that's the dream. I want to be old lady chimp.
Yeah. And so because
The grandmother hypothesis doesn't seem to apply to chimps.
Kevin and a bunch of the other scientists started looking into like what is going on here.
The second most prominent hypothesis is called this reproductive conflict hypothesis.
The reproductive conflict hypothesis.
I love that we've gone from like the grandmother hypothesis, which feels so loving, to
Reproductive
the reproductive conflict.
Well, bear with me because in some ways it's maybe the opposite, or it's maybe not quite what you think it's going to be.
I love that. Go.
Okay, and the theory itself is like a little bit convoluted, but
Okay.
the big idea is that there's a sort of subtle evolutionary calculation hidden in the way chimpanzee females set up their families.
In chimpanzees, males stay in their group for their whole lives.
But the females, the daughters, when they hit puberty, leave their family group to join another one.
The general reason for this is like avoid inbreeding, right?
Right.
So think of this. Think of it, you're a female chimp. You're born in one group.
Then you hit like 12 or 13.
You disperse to a new group where you want to start having kids.
When you first get into that new family, you're not related to anybody around you. You don't share genes with anyone.
But as you have your first kid, let's say you have a male,
Then you have one family member, your son, who does have your genes.
it eventually grows up. It has its own kids.
Those kids have your genes
So you're just getting more related to group members.
as you grow into an older female chimp.
Okay.
So now to zoom out a little bit,
Now here's why is it called the reproductive conflict hypothesis.
if you look at the larger group that the chimp female is part of,
There's a limited amount of resources, and if you have a kid, that means that some other female in your group can't have a kid.
Yeah, it's just how basic ecology works.
right,
Reproduction is a zero-sum game. So there's reproductive conflict between females.
and so if you're this older female chimp and you're looking around, maybe there are like new young females that have just joined your family, and you're like,
Who's going to have the next kid, me or this young female?
Mm-hmm.
If this young female has this kid, who's she going to have it with? Well, it could be my son that has the kid with this young female, right?
And my genes could get passed down that way.
So I'm going to get some indirect fitness benefits through this young female's reproduction.
On the other hand,
can the young female say the same thing about the reproduction of this old female? No, she shares no genes with the hypothetical offspring of this old female.
So as the evolutionary math would have it,
old females are predicted to sort of seed these reproductive opportunities to the young females and stop reproducing.
Oh, so it's like Garbo and other older female chimps can contribute to the group and get a benefit themselves just by bowing out and doing their own thing.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Good theory.
Good theory.
But just like the grandmother hypothesis, it's not a perfect fit.
Why? Well, apparently, so this is kind of like nitpicky, but Kevin says that the benefits of these older females bowing out, they like don't quite make up for the fact that they're like living these long, luxurious post-reproductive lives, like painting their nails and eating monkey meat. So it like maybe doesn't quite work.
Okay. Damn it. So is Kevin about to swoop in and be like, I've got my own hypothesis?
No, I do not.
Oh, what?
I do not.
Wait, so I'm just left hanging?
Right. And left with the, I don't know, just the magic and wonder of this world, right?
There's like not a grand universal theory of post-reproductive females.
Okay.
And it's still just like a real open question of why we, or orcas, or chimps, live this long post-reproductive life.
Right. I mean, honestly, there's a part of me that's like, thank God. Because if we had actually found an answer, it would have felt so prescriptive. I don't know. It makes me feel like it would have been kind of sad.
I agree. I mean, I think it would be kind of limiting. And I think the thing is, one of the things I've loved about this reporting process of the story isn't really learning the theories, which are kind of confusing in a lot of ways, but actually learning about these specific animals like Granny and Garbo, and I'm just their lives. Like, what do they do during that time?
Yeah.
And I feel like I've gotten to a point in my reporting where I'm much more interested in the what they're doing than the why does this happen, if that makes any sense. And at some point I also remembered that there's of course that third animal that goes through menopause and has a long post-reproductive life and feels good, strong.
Yes.
And so I called up one of them.
Yes.
My name is Caroline Paul, and I'm a writer. And my expertise is that I am postmenopausal. I'm 61 years old.
I mean, to be fair, Caroline also wrote an entire book that's basically a study of how women live their lives after menopause.
Called Tough Broad, From Boogie Boarding to Wing Walking, How Outdoor Adventure Improves Our Lives as We Age.
And so I went to her and I asked her, like, okay, there's Granny, there's Garbo, now tell me about Caroline.
I love that.
You know, I think when I was young, I was really interested in metrics. So I wanted to be the first.
She's specifically this like very adventure-y kind of lady.
Sometimes I was the first down a river. I was the first to mountain bike through the Bolivian Andes.
I'm like, Heather just got her driver's license.
Yeah, I didn't just get it, but I am learning how to drive alone on the road. So, you know, everyone's in a different moment of their life.
To each their own adventure.
Anyway, back to Caroline. When she started to have menopause symptoms, or really perimenopause symptoms,
it was almost like someone had like killed your dog and given you a weird acid drug at the same time for extended periods.
In what sense is that the case?
I was crying all the time and eating at weird hours of the night. The other thing that kept happening is that I would go to parties and I wouldn't remember anybody's face.
Whoa. And all of this went on for like,
I think it was like 4.5 years.
Jeez. But this all kind of tracked with what she was expecting to happen, because she, like kind of all of us, had heard that this time in her life would be pretty brutal.
Right. The only thing you hear, it feels like, is how dreadful it will be.
Right.
But I just remember around 57 suddenly realizing that I felt really different.
She felt like a lot calmer and clearer.
There was no more sudden crying jags. I remembered everybody's name, everybody's face.
And that's when she realized,
oh, now I'm in menopause.
And for this part of her life, she told me really the only messaging she was getting is what, like, not to do.
Narrowing life, not opening it up.
Because women, as they get older, are getting told things like,
we have to watch our bones, we have to watch our brain, our cognitive health is on decline. We're told that as we age, we're losing things.
But beyond that, she kind of didn't have
for menopausal women, women over 50, 60, we don't have a script anymore. There's a big gray area.
She felt kind of lost. Meanwhile, men her age, everywhere they look, they have tons of scripts, tons of icons.
I mean, Harrison Ford is still running through tombs. Tom Cruise is jumping off some high building somewhere.
And she was like, why can't we have that? So she set out to write this book, which became
The quest to understand whether I should have outdoor adventure in my life.
And she met all these different women in their 60s and 70s and 80s that were doing like totally badass stuff.
From base jumping as a grandmother to sea kayaking to BMX bike racing.
These are not women who were worried about bones breaking. Not at all. And like, well, that's great. I'm all for it. But, you know, as somebody who's maybe not the most physically adventurous person, I also really appreciated some of the she told me about women who are going on quieter but still very meaningful adventures.
I went bird watching with someone in a wheelchair.
And she talked to this kind of amazing woman who learned how to swim in her 60s.
Oh, cool.
And it was very scary for her, but she still pushed herself to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So and what she found was like not just a bunch of role models for her,
Yeah.
but she also found that that for a lot of these women,
instead of closing down their life, had found new aspects of themselves.
finding new possibilities for their life, and they kind of had these new capacities for awe and wonder and bravery that they had never tapped into before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a time of great exploration that we should be grabbing hold of. There are new permutations and very valuable ones of us as we age.
It's like my new hypothesis is just to flip the script or something. That no script is the script.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And I wonder if one of the sort of uses of us, if we're going to be that, let's say, scientific about it, is simply to show the younger generation that life is going to get better. I have seen personally that when young people see how our lives are at this age, I think all that is of great value. So we don't really have to put a lot of work into that. We can just go and be our best selves. We should be sitting in that tree, being fed delectable meats, and doing whatever we want.
Thank you, Heather.
You too, Molly.
Good luck on
my driving journey?
Not on the driving journey, the menopause journey.
Oh yeah, right. Our menopause.
You've got some time. Yeah, maybe we'll be holding hands and base jumping together.
I don't think so. Okay, let's go bird watching.
Okay. Heather might not have jumped out of planes, but she has done plenty of stories for us over the years, and one of them is a very delightful conversation with Lulu and Latif called Butt Stuff, and it is based on Heather's book called Butts, A Backstory. By the way, Lucy Cook's latest book has a bunch of other stories about the lives of females of many, many different species. It is well worth checking out. It is called Bitch. And when you're done with that, you can just move on over to Tough Broad by Caroline Paul. It is a book about the outdoors and aging and how those things go together. Special thanks to Daniel Friedman, Rachel Gross, Sam Wasser, Sam Ellis, and Kate Radke. This episode was reported by Heather Radke with help from Becca Bressler. It was produced by Sarah Kari and Becca Bressler. It was also edited by Becca Bressler and fact-checked by Emily Krieger. I now have to do something on these credits that I don't really want to do, which is actually say goodbye to the Becca Bressler, who you just heard a ton about. This is Becca's last episode at Radiolab. You may remember her for her on-air hits about voter profiling and the economics of food delivery systems and that one thing about the bug bite tool and whether or not it works. On the inside of the show, we know her for all of that and also her just like crazy fast editing style, like her crunchy brain, her sharp sense of humor, and also her ability to sing Billy Joel at a level that is unbelievable, and I hope you all get to hear at some point. Becca, we will miss you. It's been a really rad 8 years. I can't believe it's been 8 years, and yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next. All of us can't wait. We'll miss you.
Murdo Station, Antarctica. Here are the staff credits. Radio Lab was created by Jad Abumrad and is edited by Soren Wheeler. Lulu Miller and Latif Nasser are our co-hosts. Dylan Keith is our director of sound design. Our staff includes Simon Adler, Jeremy Bloom, Becca Bressler, W. Harry Fortuna, David Gable, Maria Paz Gutierrez, Sindhu Nandan Sambandan, Matt Keelty, Annie McEwen, Alex Neeson, Sarah Kari, Sarah Sambach, Anissa Vita, Ariane Wack, Pat Walters, Molly Webster, and Jessica Young, with help from Rebecca Rand. Our fact checkers are Diane Kelly, Emily Krieger, Anna Pujol Mazzini, and Natalie Middleton.
Hi, I'm Aubrey, calling from Salt Lake City, Utah. Leadership support for Radiolab's science programming is provided by the Simons Foundation and the John Templeton Foundation. Foundational support for Radiolab was provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation.
NYC Now delivers the most up-to-date local news from WNYC and Gothamist every morning, midday, and evening. With 3 updates a day, listeners get breaking news, top headlines, and in-depth coverage from across New York City. By sponsoring programming like NYC Now, you'll reach our community of dedicated listeners with premium messaging and an uncluttered audio experience. Visit sponsorship.wnyc.org to get in touch and find out more.
Wait, you're
You're listening
listening
to Radio Lab.
Radio
From
NYC.
The place I really want to start is I wonder if you can tell me about all the different ways a galaxy can die.
Okay, so a galaxy can die or quench in a variety of different ways. For
Wait, and
example,
I'm already going to stop you because that word quench,
yeah,
does that mean like galaxy dimming, galaxy dying?
yeah, we call it death in kind of a way, or a dimming of sorts. Yeah.
Got it.
So I would define it as any process that prevents star formation from happening.
Okay.
And for stars to form, you need cold, dense gas. You can think of cold, dense gas, mostly hydrogen, as the fuel for star formation.
Okay. And so ways that the galaxy quenches is when the stars can't get that fuel?
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, what makes that fuel not get there?
Well, for example, the supermassive black holes that exist in the center of every massive galaxy, those supermassive black holes can heat up that gas. Or the supermassive black holes can have these jets that'll actually expel the gas outside of the galaxy completely into the intergalactic space.
Okay, so then the stars just kind of starve?
Yeah, and that's a term that actually is used in galaxy quenching. It's called starvation, because some of this cold gas can come into the galaxy from what we call the cosmic web. And if that process gets shut off for some reason, then we call that starvation. And
get pushed out from the inside, or it just stops coming in?
yeah, exactly. There's starvation, strangulation. Yeah, I'm not sure why these words are so violent. I feel like we could have come up with better ones.
The current scientific thinking is that there are at least 8 ways that a galaxy can die. That's the theory. But Charity Woodrum has spent her career actually looking, trying to observe the physical processes that make them dim and sputter out. I'm Lulu Miller, and today on Radiolab, we have a story of something almost mythic that Charity observed in the darkness. Something I didn't know could happen in space, something Charity never expected to see. Something that would nudge science forward in its understanding of how galaxies evolve. And something that would end up nudging her forward, ever so slightly, through an unthinkable loss.
How did you get interested in this like morbid branch of astrophysics? Should I start with all the way back to how I got involved in astronomy in general?
Yeah, take us all the way back. How the heck did you end up studying how galaxies die?
So I grew up in rural Oregon in a small town called Canyonville. When you grow up in a rural area like that, you get to see the Milky Way. And so being under the dark night sky certainly affected me, and it was certainly a place of peace for me growing up.
Was it contrast to like in the house, in the school, anything like that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that there was chaos at home. Both of my parents at one time were addicted to some type of drug. My dad, I think one of the words people would use to describe him would be violent. And I think as a distraction, I would go out and look up at the night sky, just be in the backyard, just walking into the grass and laying down in the grass, sometimes with a sleeping bag, you know, under the trees, and just looking up at the night sky. Yeah. I was thinking a lot about how big the universe is, and how even though I was in my small town, that the world was a lot bigger, the universe was a lot bigger, and there was just more out there to explore. At a young age, I asked one of my middle school teachers what I could do to work for NASA someday, and he laughed at me.
Like a cruel.
It was like a chuckle. I don't think he was trying to be cruel, because at the time it didn't make sense to me. I was the valedictorian of our high school, but you know, looking back, my graduating class only had 17 people, and he also knew my family history. Neither of my parents graduated high school, and just, you know, we grew up in a very low income area, and so I think he was seeing all of that. There were no other scientists in that town. A lot of the jobs would either be logging or going to nursing school, but I had never heard about a scientist before. At the time, I was like, okay, I don't know how to do this then.
So then what do you end up going on to study? What's the next chapter?
So once I graduated high school, my biggest goal, I guess, was to escape poverty, and I became a registered nurse. But once I started working as a nurse, I couldn't handle the emotional toll of it. Just seeing human suffering on a daily basis, like an older person not getting visited, or even, you know, once a week there would be something absolutely catastrophic that you would see. And I found myself just thinking about it all the time, and it was really affecting my daily life. So at Jason, what would be my future husband, one of his coping mechanisms was to read books. He read, you know, hundreds of books a year.
Wow.
And yeah, he was like, why don't you pick up some books? Maybe that will get your mind off of it. I started picking up popular science books by, you know, like Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking, and started reading about those. There's a particular image, actually, itself, that's one of the main reasons that I went back to school to study physics. It's called the Hubble Deep Field. And
Hubble Deep Field. Okay.
I encountered it in one of those books, and basically this image, how it was made was they found the darkest part of the sky. So as far as we knew, there was nothing there. And some astronomers said, why don't we point the Hubble Space Telescope at this dark patch of sky for 10 days? Which was a very kind of bold and crazy move, because Hubble Space Telescope time is very precious and expensive. And some people thought nothing would be there. Like, why point it in complete darkness? And yeah, they used Hubble to stare at this dark place in the sky for 10 whole days. And then the image that came back had thousands of galaxies in it.
Thousands?
Yes.
You can easily pull this image up. Just Google the Hubble Deep Field. It looks like someone threw glitter on a black floor, and there's like some bigger pieces that feel closer, and there's all different colors. I see greens and yellows and oranges and blues and whites